This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with James O'Brien.
It is 3 minutes after 10 and you are listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Let's start with a text. Everyone's a critic. This is from Michael. Not you two, he writes. That's you two, as in me too, not as in Bono and The Edge and the rest of them. Not you two. The drumbeat of criticism over U-turns, which are actually signs of collegiate and listening policy making, is designed to destabilise this young government. The right-wing press still can't stand the fact they lost. As someone brilliant once said, there's no point in having a mind if you can't change it. Who can spot the U2 link with that line? Michael is very kindly and slightly sarcastically referring to me, but it was actually Edward de Bono, who was a philosopher before he joined U2. It was Edward de Bono who actually made that observation first. That's a bit niche, that, isn't it? If you've got to explain a joke, it probably isn't working. I hope Michael's right. Okay, I hope Michael's right. I hope that I have fallen victim to chatter and noise. And I can begin today's first phone-in by listing all the things that are stacked against Keir Starmer. Here's a really weird thing that I've noticed. And, hey, I could be wrong, so by all means, bung me a text. 03456060973 for WhatsApp, 84850 for texts, if you can find one. But I haven't been able to find a single compelling defence of the welfare bill. I know the rationale behind it is that there is a necessity to save money, and also that there is a failure in the system to help people who want to work but currently can't because of the odds that are stacked against them to be addressed, so people can end up languishing against their wishes on benefits, disability and sickness benefits. I understand all of that, but I haven't seen a single compelling defence of the detail of this bill. We only really scratched the surface of it yesterday, but what became immediately clear is the vulnerability of people with fluctuating conditions. The near impossibility, but I don't believe impossibility, but the enormous difficulty of framing a system, a working system, a system of work which can accommodate people who don't know until they get up in the morning, and often not even then, whether they're going to be capable of working that day or how many hours they're going to be able to do that day. So a fluctuating condition which will include many people listening to this programme and far beyond, people who are contacting their MPs to tell them that they're terrified. And listen, you can send me texts. I'm in a surprisingly wonderful mood today, so you can send me all the nasty texts you like about scroungers and freeloaders and how we've got to get rid of them and none of them deserve it, and you know someone who went to school with someone whose mum was married to someone who was a right old scrounger and all of that malarkey. But that doesn't actually change the simple reality that an awful lot of the most vulnerable people in the country believe that they're about to be punched in the face by a government that they thought would be on their side. And if I were to make that list of things that are stacked against Keir Starmer, I would include the fact that he doesn't really have any cheerleaders in the media. You might think I am, but that is a terrible reflection of, in the same way that what's his chops in the Daily Mail, Richard Littlejohn, described me as hard left last week, which I imagine has caused an enormous intake of breath among people who are actually hard left. But it's all relative, isn't it? If you think someone who isn't sticking the boot into Keir Starmer every single day for reasons that they probably can't explain to you is a cheerleader, then it's only because of what everybody else is doing all the time. And so one of the things stacked against Keir Starmer is the absolute absence, really, of support for his government from a tribal or a partisan position in the media. One of the reasons I like him, and this is damning him with faint praise, is because of who he isn't. He isn't Liz Truss. He isn't Boris Johnson. He isn't David Cameron. He isn't Jeremy Corbyn. He isn't any of the people who were either incapable of running a party or incapable of running a country. But that's not a particularly glowing endorsement, is it? Who's your favourite? Oh, well, I don't know if I'm just glad it's not any of that. But he keeps the terrible people out of power. He has kept the terrible people out of power. Probably a slightly unfair analysis of Rishi Sunak, that, but we'll leave that, as we said yesterday, for the history teachers. History writers and history teachers of the future. But if I can't find a single cogent and compelling defence. So I'm just going to check my inbox actually to see if you've sent me any of the bill in its current form, and the fact that over 120 Labour MPs are minded to reject it is pretty huge, politically speaking. It is not a leadership ending moment, but it is a deeply damaging prospect of defeat or another surrender, another U-turn, another reverse, whatever it may be. And if no one, apart from this, let me find you something that these are the only people that that think that they're in support of the bill. And I can't imagine that they're people who are ever going to vote for the Labour Party. But here's Nikki writing, your privilege is clouding your judgment here. The number of people who don't want to work is far more significant than you allow for. So there is a perception that this is aimed at scroungers. No one is claiming that it's aimed at scroungers. So there's the second big thing that's stacked against him, is that the nature of coverage, the nature of political coverage and the ownership in many ways of our national media has skewed the proposal entirely, because someone like Nikki comes away thinking this is all about getting rid of the scroungers, so somehow whip-cracking people into work or leaving them to starve if they refuse. Yes, there's so many scroungers, and that is a widespread perception. It's been probably the first lesson I learnt presenting this show was the ease with which people can be persuaded that everybody on any benefit is a scrounger. Do you remember when everyone would wang on endlessly about flat-screen televisions? People were still wanging on endlessly about flat-screen televisions long after it became impossible to buy a television in this country that wasn't flat-screen. I had a sort of road to Damascus moment at the tip of all places. You know, the pile in the corner of all the electronic goods. I remember every single television is a flat-screen television. So we've now reached the point in human history where the only flat-screen televisions that you're throwing out are flat-screen televisions, because it's impossible to buy one that isn't. But still they wanged on. So the perception there is that it's designed to hit scroungers, and the reality of the Labour rebellion is that it's going to hit people who are the opposite of scroungers. It's going to hit people who are among the most vulnerable. It's going to hurt people, the people that we spoke to yesterday. We are, however, skint. If this was a household, then we would be on our uppers. You know, if this was a household, we'd be living on muesli. The scale of the debt, the servicing of the debt is off the charts. And it is a little bit simplistic to suggest that if you need to raise or save money, then the way to do it is to go after the people who've got the most, not the people who've got the least. Listen, I have an inner undergraduate that's very near the surface some mornings, and it's quite near the surface today. This madness, this mad marriage to the idea of not having any tax rises, while simultaneously reducing welfare among disabled and poorly people, is extraordinary. But it is where we are. So somewhere between those two observations lies the truth. There is as far I've still got a tickly throat. If you were listening yesterday, it's better than it was, but until I start, I mean, I know what you're thinking. Why don't you do shorter monologues, and then your throat will probably recover quicker? You've got a point there. You don't have to cheer quite so enthusiastically at the prospect. So it's impossible to find a really compelling defence of this bill. But at the same time, it's impossible to find pretty much anybody who is going to take a bullet for Keir Starmer. It's the number of MPs that have signed up to oppose it that worries me the most. That convinces me the most that he has really, really messed up. And that is, in case you're wondering where this phone-in is going to go, it's too early to contemplate a leadership change. This is why Michael's cross with me, even for talking about it. And I agree, but it is going incredibly badly. I don't buy the idea. I would do with one or two, but if you've got two of the biggest things they've done, the winter fuel and the welfare, you can use the word collegiate until you're blue in the face. You can tell me how uplifting and heartening it is to have leaders that actually listen. but from now till Christmas. But these are clangers of epic proportions that have been dropped upon the feet of the people who introduced them. These are huge missteps and mistakes. This is poor judgment. And I want to know why you think it's happening. I want to know what is going wrong. The Ming vase that was so successfully carried across the ice rink hasn't been dropped, it's been delivered. The Ming vase arrives on its plinth the minute Keir Starmer gets into power, gets into Downing Street. And because of that factor one, the massed ranks of the UK media being so obviously stacked against him, we don't know much about the good stuff. Most obviously for me, probably the workers' rights and the beginning of a renationalisation programme on the railways. But we do know that two of the biggest issues, two of the biggest things that they've done, the winter fuel allowance and the welfare bill, are both, well, one has already been abandoned and the other one I think is, well, it's either going to be abandoned or he's going to get spanked in the House of Commons on Tuesday. So what is going wrong? And sometimes, can I tell you a secret? I think I may have told you this before, but the vaguer the question I ask you, sometimes the harder it is to get good answers, the harder it is to get interesting answers. So I'm a little bit allergic to vague questions, but sometimes they're the only questions that work because you're stepping so far back from the detail in order to take in the entire vista, the entire landscape of modern British politics. How badly is it going? And polling today has Farage's outfit as the largest party if there were to be a general election tomorrow. You can't rule out that possibility. I'm afraid if we've learned anything over the last 10 years, we've learned that people do not learn from history. They do not learn from the past. So, the idea that someone that was pro-Brexit, pro-Boris Johnson, pro-Liz Truss, let's have another go. Let's smash our head against the brick wall for a fourth, fifth, sixth time in the hope that this time the wall will break as opposed to our heads. That is evidence that, and 1 year in, and it's only a year, things are going really badly for this government, according to both party management and public opinion. Have a crack at defending it for me, please. I don't think you will. That's why it's not the phone-in today. All LBC presenters can throw open their switchboard at the top of the show and be absolutely inundated with people who are terrified of the impacts of the welfare bill. It's important and it's interesting. But it's a bit easy, frankly, and it's less easy to step back from the detail, as I say, and try and work out why they're getting it all so wrong, if indeed you think they are. So there it is. Why is it going so badly? 03456 60973. Can I ask both of those questions at the same? How badly is it going? 03456 60973. And why is it going so bad? I think it's going really bad. There you go. I'm a caller now. Hello, James. First-time caller. Love the show. I think it's going really badly. I can't believe that they have managed to alienate so many of their traditional voters, but that you could chalk up as teething trouble. They're also now alienating their own MPs. That these are the people who had to sell slices of their soul on the doorsteps of this country in order to defend the winter fuel bill, and then he pulled the rug from under them and admitted that all the people criticising it were right all along, so they got rid of it. And now I'm being inundated by callers telling me that the welfare bill is terrifying to them and is, some of the statistics show, going to push children into poverty, something the Labour Party exists to eradicate, something the Labour Party exists to get rid of. I'm getting a few texts, more than usual. I'm not going to put you in idiot's corner from people who know someone who's got a blue badge that they don't deserve. That's not going to be affected by the welfare bill. If your neighbour's got a fraudulent disability badge, then it's fraudulent. They bought it off someone down the pub. They're not in receipt of welfare. I don't know. Maybe that is one for idiot's corner. But why is it? Why do you think things are going so badly for Keir Starmer, specifically? Not the Labour government, not the Labour Party, but for Keir Starmer specifically. Can you join Michael in arguing that he is simply, once again, the victim of a hideously biased news landscape? I reject that analysis. Some of these mistakes are avoidable. All of these mistakes are self-inflicted. So what is going wrong? Hit the numbers now. You will get through, because it's a vague question. So you've got a better chance of getting through on this than if I ask you to ring in and explain to me exactly what you know about Iran's nuclear capabilities. 0345 6060 973. Do you agree with me that things are going very badly? If not, why not? And if you do agree with me, why? What can you put your finger on first as reasons why these self-inflicted catastrophes seem to be becoming a feature rather than a glitch?
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 20 minutes after 10, couple of hits, and then we'll go to Emma in Maidstone. It's a rerun of Biden. You have a generally very good government. The media have laser-focused on a couple of bad policies and blown them out of all proportion so that we end up with our own version of Trump. Well, I disagree, Taz, and I hope I'm wrong, and I hope you're right, because you can identify the problem, you can perhaps fix it. But David, I'm leaning more towards, it all feels a bit Theresa May, James, a supposedly sensible person doing something we all know is bad in order to appease people or appeal to people who aren't open to them politically anyway. So that's the idea that Theresa May could somehow appease or appeal to the absolutely boneheaded Brexiters who ended up propelling Boris Johnson all the way into Downing Street. Who is Keir Starmer trying to appease? People sending me messages about welfare scroungers, because the bill that he's proposing is not designed to address those problems. It's not like Mel Stride's bill. There's some talk of overdiagnosis, but it's not the narrative of scrounging. So anyway, look, what's going wrong? Emma's in Maidstone. Emma, what would you like to say?
Yeah, I just want to say about the scrounging thing, really, because I've been a carer since I was 19. I'm 36 now. I had an accident at work 6 years ago. I literally 6 weeks ago had my knee rebuilt. I've struggled to even get PIP. I've struggled. They've told me, no, you're not eligible for it, not eligible for it. I finally got it. That is my lifeline at the moment until I'm well enough to go back to work. They're attacking the wrong benefit people. It's not PIP people that you need. It's not easy to get PIP. People think, oh, it's so easy, you just apply and you get it. You don't. Whereas universal credit, you get that easy. You can pretend to look for work, you can do all of this stuff, and they don't even check it. And I know that for a fact that they don't check it. You can just write in there, I applied for 100 jobs, and they don't even fact check it. So why not put these people out to work in volunteer jobs, and I guarantee you all of them will not want to work for their £400 a month doing charity work because they want to go and earn a real wage.
But I could take a call now from people who are absolutely adamant that loads of people on PIP are swinging the lead as well, and then you'd get caught in that crossfire. Well, they probably think you are. They probably think you are.
Yeah, but
there's a bloke in the paper. There's a bloke in the House of Lords. He's got 4 prosthetic limbs and 3 jobs. How come he can go to work and you can't?
I literally can't walk at the moment.
He's got 4 prosthetic limbs, Emma.
I had an operation.
He's got no arms and no legs, and he goes to work every day.
And I will go back to work, but for the small
do you see how easy it is? Do you see how?
I get that, but people are sitting on the other end of the spectrum going, oh, it's so easy. It really isn't easy.
Well,
it's not easy
but
to claim it.
Someone else will say the same about universal credit.
Universal credit is a lot different.
You're doing
it.
Of course it is, but here we are. You are literally scrapping among yourselves. You're literally encouraging people to...
But the thing is, if there was more help out there, and there was more carers, I wouldn't have had an accident at work, and I wouldn't need PIP.
Yeah.
Because I would have had help at work, but there was no help in the care system to help people. You're understaffed, you're overworked, and accidents are happening. So they need to start looking elsewhere. It's not just the benefit system. All they're doing there is taking away bread from people who need it.
Well, a lot of people on universal credit need it, Emma, but hey-ho, well done. Go after each other instead of going after whoever it is that's actually responsible for the plight in which you find yourself. Cuts to the care system, low pay, all of these things could be addressed by a Labour government, but only with money that they're currently trying to save by introducing a welfare bill. I hope you don't get hit hard by the PIP payments, and I hope you don't mind me pointing out, it's Craig McKinley, the former Tory MP, who's now in the House of Lords, in the newspaper today saying that people like you should get off your backside and go to work because he's got four prosthetic limbs and he manages to hold down 3 jobs. Hasn't even got a knee, let alone a rebuilt one. But that's what it sounds. If I was a glib tabloid right-wing presenter, that's what I'd be arguing, apparently sincerely and authentically rather than mischievously. Chrissy is in Brighton. Chrissy, what's going wrong?
I think it's about the optics. It's about what...
I hate that word, but I like you, so I'm going to let it stand.
Look, I'm a long-time listener and first-time caller, and I'm feeling really nervous. And I know it's only you.
It's getting ridiculous now, that catchphrase. Carrie, what is going wrong? And I don't know if your phone line's gone a bit muffled or something, but let's crack on.
Okay. So going back to the winter fuel allowance, I'm a 72-year-old pensioner, and when that was announced, it was a big intake of breath by me, thinking, oh, God, how am I going to manage? Because I used to pay that money straight into my energy account and then bleed it out over the 4 difficult months, 50 quid. So, but people like me didn't ring into LBC and weren't talked about in the media. It was all the people that were going to be, seriously hard done by. Yes. So what actually happened to me was I did have this sharp intake of breath, but then I managed fine. I refused to be cold, and I had enough money to cope with that. And I'm just wondering now, are there lots of disabled Chrissies? I'm not disabled, so I don't know.
Sure.
Are there lots of people like me, the equivalent of me with the winter fuel allowance, that actually aren't ringing in?
And actually we'll discover when it's not there. To paraphrase Joni Mitchell, Christy, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. And what you realised when it was gone, potentially, was that you didn't need it in the first time. Now you've got it back.
I know. And they've gone for 35,000 back. That is just... it's swinging from one end of the continuum. You've
That's
got
a
to be
point.
Pension credit.
Yeah. 35 grand was actually, that's where our phone-ins went. That struck almost everybody as an excessively high figure, an excessively high threshold for receiving it.
Yeah, it's just great. So we don't know how many ordinary people who will be, oh my God, I'm going to lose this, but actually will be all right. We don't know.
I know we don't, but we do know that people who are in this particular boat are more likely to have done the sums than we are. They are more likely to have calculated precisely how it's going to impact on them. We know that the OBR's projections are pretty hideous, but even if let's say you're right, and this is why you used that dreadful word optics at the beginning of the contribution, that they have completely failed to communicate it, just as they did with winter fuel. Do you know what you've reminded me of? This is going to sound weird. It's another word I don't like very much. ULEZ. Because do you remember that by-election in Uxbridge? Everyone in Uxbridge thought that when ULEZ came in, they were going to have to get around town on a penny farthing. And then it came in and it affected absolutely nobody. They lost an entire by-election because they failed to support Sadiq Khan. Keir Starmer swam the other way. They failed to properly communicate to the constituency that it was all mad right-wing scaremongering and conspiracy theories. And then, 2 weeks later, everyone's forgotten all about ULEZ. They've just been lumbered with a Tory MP.
Exactly.
See, I've not thought about that because that happened slowly. We didn't pay it the attention that we should have paid. Chrissy, what a brilliant debut. What do you think you'll call in for on the second occasion?
Oh, I don't know, but
wait and see.
I'm very proud.
Yeah, no, you're a natural now, you see. Duck to water. She'll be back. You can always tell. Thank you, Chrissy. Have a great day. 28 after 10 is the time. Jeff's in Derby. Jeff, what do you reckon?
Hi, James. First-time caller,
Welcome.
massive fan.
Thank you,
Love the
Jeff.
show. You keep me sane, mate. You really
Well,
do.
I know you say that, but you can't prove it. Anyway, carry on.
Right, so I think this is kind of a problem of their own making, but kind of victim of circumstance as well. So I think he is really trying to pander to the soft Conservatives, and I think this started in the election with the Ming Vars. It was like, let's do everything to appeal to everybody to get this majority over the line. But also, he's leading the Labour Party, and that means that now he's backed himself into a position, for me, where he's been obviously attacked from the right, from the right-wing media, but also he's now also being attacked from the left. So he's almost being squeezed. And my real concern is I'm not sure where this can go. I think that the policy there needs to be, we can't continue to rise to 100 million or whatever it is, the massive figure.
Yes.
Something needs to be done. But it's almost like I think everything had to be done quickly. I would have, if it had been me, and it isn't, obviously, but I would have looked at this policy.
Vote Jeff and vote often.
Yeah,
Carry
vote
on.
me. I would have looked at this policy over 2 or 3 years and actually got it right. But I think they've had to continue this train where we're going to be tough on the economy. Nobody's going to accuse the Labour Party of destroying the economy.
We've been perceived for too long as the party that only helps people who are vulnerable. We want to help people who help themselves. Whether you like the rhetoric or not, that is clearly what they're trying to do.
Correct. Yeah,
and it's not working. It's not working.
No. Just like Jeremy Corbyn on the other side never worked, because they were, like you say, they were perceived as, unless you are needing help, they don't care about us. If I go out and work 9 to 5 every day, and I'm still struggling to feed the kids, and don't care about us. And I think they've really tried to pull away from that, but I think they've gone too far. As I say, like the thing that, and I'm a Labour supporter, I'm a Labour voter, but I was absolutely crushed the way they announced the winter fuel allowance. It was almost like, yes, look how strong we're going to be on the economy. We're going to scrap the winter fuel allowance. The PR around it was dreadful. If they'd have took 2 or 3 weeks even with the narrative, look, we're paying a fortune for this, although it isn't a fortune really. But, there is people out there, it's the millionaires, they shouldn't be getting this, and then created a narrative.
Well, they've done that a bit, haven't they? They've done the VAT on school fees. I know, everyone who sends children to private school is not a millionaire by any stretch of the imagination, but they're very, very, very high up on the national earning scales. Simply by being able to afford it after tax. That's not an opinion, that's counting. And they did it with the farmers. But you don't have a sense that people are seeing justice. It's okay. No, even if they successfully communicated the necessity of raising money or saving money, which of course have the same results, the idea that you should go after disabled people or sick people, or even the tiny proportion of people on the payroll, on the welfare payroll, who are perhaps swinging the lead, perhaps lying. Who is it supposed to appeal to, that idea?
Well, it's a bit like, you said very early on in Starmer's premiership, it looks like he's not going to pander to the right-wing press. And I'm not... but the thing is, you see, with the school fees, the farmers thing, he's got absolutely battered by that from the right-wing press, although I don't think either are that unpopular in the country. But the right-wing press, of course,
but he's stuck with those ones. So actually, I mean, here you go. Here's the first line of defence: is that he's stuck with the policies that are really, really annoying the right wing. It's the policies that have really, really annoyed the left wing, the mildly left wing, that he has buckled on.
Yeah, I think though it's worse than that. I think he knows that out in the country he can defend those two policies. So on the doorstep, people say to me about the farmers, I feel that I can defend that. I think the problem is, it's like the winter fuel allowance. It was really almost like something that was bubbling, and it got to the stage where it's now bubbled over, and you can't walk out. I can't go out and defend the way, and I can't do the welfare cuts.
Hey, you've made me really late for the news.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's all right. I'm really late for the news. I was hanging on your every word, Jeff. I'll tell you what, if you do ever run, and I moved to Derby, which is oddly enough where I was born, then you've got my vote. Thomas Watts is here with the headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
36 is the time. I wonder how many of us agree with Gary when he writes, at least it's Thursday. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Gary. Which means it's Mystery Hour at 12, all being well. Chrissy's call has touched quite a lot of nerves. Another Chrissy, well, I don't know if you are known as Chrissy, but you are Christine on Blue Sky. I so agree with the lady speaking now. No wonder we're having an intergenerational fight. Most graduates and many, many workers don't earn anywhere near £35,000. They should have stuck that threshold at 18 to 20. So you lose and lose again, really. So any claim that by reversing the winter fuel allowance cuts proves that you're listening and governing in a collegiate fashion falls apart when you replace it with something that alienates an entirely different section of the population, i.e. the rest of it, because the 35,000 threshold is perceived as too high. You sort of find yourself wondering who this is designed to appeal to and what those principles are that you just heard about in Thomas's news bulletin. A Labour minister has told LBC that the party broadly agrees on the principles behind the welfare bill. What are the principles behind the welfare bill? Because if you're going to say the principles are that we need to save money and we need to help people who want to work, then the reality is that those people don't think this bill is going to help them. So how can you agree on something? It's a bit like being in favour of a military intervention without knowing whether the reasons you've been given for the military intervention are true or not. But that was yesterday's phone-in. This is today's. Jennifer is in Chiswick. Jennifer, what would you like to say?
Hi, James.
Hello.
I'm not going to say anything that's necessarily
You have to
popular.
say something. You have to say something. It's the nature of the
It's
medium.
not going to be popular.
Well, go on, don't worry.
So I think his decision on the welfare bill amendment is the correct thing to do. However, it's obviously not popular with his voter base or his politicians. So I think the communication has not been good, to say the least.
What do you like about it?
I think that the welfare spending that we have in this country is just ballooned out of control, and it's going to continue doing the same thing for the next couple of years, and something just has to be done. I think
there aren't many circumstances in which you'd start with disabled people, are there, when you are in need of a financial fillip?
Well, I guess when they looked at welfare spending and they saw where these claimants were coming from, they had to look at how these PIP assessments were being done. And, you know,
we're getting a lot of data, a lot of evidence, and it's beyond anecdotal. It includes OBR projections that these cuts are going to push already vulnerable people into much worse situations. You see, I think what you're doing, forgive me if I've got this wrong, you're echoing that news bulletin, is that there are vague principles with which you agree, but you can't defend the detail because you don't know what it is, and all of the people who do know what the detail is are describing something pretty dismal, pretty grim.
I mean, from what I've seen, the severely disabled won't even be reassessed. So if you're severely disabled, you won't even have a reassessment. You will still be given those benefits. And for universal credit,
the people who rely on PIP, who are no longer going to meet the 4-point threshold, are absolutely at a loss as to what they're supposed to do.
Well, universal credit is still going to increase. And some of these changes aren't happening till 2028.
No, I hear you. And I mean, it's not what one might call a full-throated defence of the policy, but I guess that his best chance of success is that narrative that we are simply spending too much money, and, you know, you can't make an omelette without breaking eggs, and if the eggs we're going to break happen to be people on sickness benefits and disability benefits, then them's the breaks. An awful lot of people will think that there should be tax rises on the wealthier, the least vulnerable members of society, but of course very, very few people feel wealthy at the moment. I'm not going to write a Daily Telegraph article about how hard it is to get by on $100,000 a year, but I know Chiswick very well, Jennifer. I used to live there. There'll be plenty of people in Chiswick who are technically wealthy, but who do not feel that they are well off, and I don't know if they're going to welcome cuts to the welfare spend or to the benefits bill, but they are probably among the easiest people to persuade that something must be done. So how has Starmer managed to end up in a situation where the latest polling shows that a plurality of voters and a majority of Labour 2024 voters would now support a U-turn on these cuts? The only voters who are really split are Tory votes, so he hasn't even won them over. They're pretty much split. The only people who like it are Tory voters. Greens, Lib Dems and a rather large majority of Labour voters all hate it. They'd all welcome the U-turn. How's he ended up in this kind of political mess? 10:41 is the time. Emma is in Romford. Emma, what would you like to say?
Hello, James. I'd just like to clarify a few aspects that your people are phoning in are misinformation.
Go on.
My husband is disabled, and he claims PIP. He's got a degenerative muscle disease that's not got any diagnosis. He uses PIP to go to work. He works a full-time job in the city, in London, in a law firm. He doesn't take anything from anyone. He uses it so he could get a mobility scooter and help with his mobility to go to work to pay his national insurance and his tax contribution.
I mean, I don't want to jump in too early, but what is it you think that we haven't been represented? Because, I mean, the fact that PIP is a benefit, people to think that everyone getting PIP isn't in work.
It's not in work.
Yeah,
There's a big difference. But PIP is also, you have to get it to qualify for a blue badge.
Of course you do.
He has to get it to gateway other services.
And it doesn't matter how much he earns. It's not means tested. He needs help
it's not
with his
means-tested
mobility,
in at all.
which is civilised, which is how it should be.
He probably pays more back in tax than he does in the amount of receivement that he gets. But he gets other things because he now gets PIP. And I'm assure you that there's a lot of people out there like that. You know, the government at the moment is looking at the welfare bill, but it's not PIP and the disabled people. They should be looking at helping people going back to work, not because they're disabled and need help for work, because there's a lot of places that are very helpful to disability people. It's society that judges, and the treatment that sometimes
they
my
say
gets,
that they're giving $1 billion to precisely that.
It's not. It's not enough.
Well, it's more. It's £1 billion more than nothing.
Well, it's not going to change the welfare bill. It's not going to make people stop universal credit. It's not going to make people not go to work.
No.
You are attacking the people who help pay for all this because they go to work. It might only be that some people do only go a few hours. Some people work from home full time. But these people have PIP so they can do their job every day and contribute.
You know the mobility element of PIP isn't changing?
No, but my husband, the way it's being reformed, will not qualify for PIP when his review is.
I'm sorry to hear that. And that is just ridiculous. And that's I mean, I'd say you've done two things.
2016, and it is hard to get hold of. It is hard, and it's really difficult. And we had somebody come out and they looked at our house, went into all our business, went all up and down my house, everything, doing his PIP assessment. Don't get me wrong, it is very quite beautiful when they do it, but it's the reason he can get up every day and go to work, because now he's got a mobility scooter and he's got the ability to go to work. And
that will be a common experience. Labour MPs have made this mistake. I don't think we have, but you can't clarify it too much, Emma, so I'm grateful to you for that. It's a bit like the perception that everyone on universal credit is unemployed, which is categorically not true. The idea that everyone on PIP isn't working. And the mobility allowance is largely designed to help people with disabilities get to flipping work. And yet all of this, it's a massive, massive failure of communication. But it may also be a massively awful policy. That's the problem with the whole communication line. We haven't said the words Morgan McSweeney yet. And I don't know how what do they say in Washington, D.C.? But there's a phrase that you have for being in the nucleus of political conversation. I don't know. He's not like Dominic Cummings, is he? It's not a name that everybody has a view on, because he's never driven to Barnard Castle during a nationwide pandemic and in complete breach of the law, and claimed that he did it to test his eyesight. So we don't know his name, but he is widely regarded as the sort of architect of Starmerism, if there is such a thing. And Starmerism, as Emma has just pointed out, is a curious combination of poor policy and appalling communication, which is probably why the phrase regime change appears on the front of the Times today in the context of Downing Street, not Tehran. 10:46 is the time.
James O'Brien on LBC.
49 is the time. This is from Steve in Hertfordshire. Starmer is pandering to Tory gammons with this, people who'd never vote for him. It's a stupid move. The public rejected the Tories because they were so committed to social Darwinism, and Starmer thinks adopting the policies of the party so comprehensively rejected is a good move. Notice they always overreact to the fairly small amount of people gaming the system on benefits, but there is never any suggestion of doing the same for MPs' expenses, which are also abused. I don't agree with you. You see, I don't actually think this is designed to appeal to the scrounger narrative. There's one comment by Wes Streeting about overdiagnosis of some mental health conditions. Forgive me if I've misremembered that, or I've got the person who said it wrong. But that is a million miles away from the Mel Strides and the Kemi Badenochs, who tried to create an idea that everybody, and I see its success in my inbox, that all you have to do is turn up at the GPs and tell him you're a bit sad and you'll be signed off work for the rest of your life on £500 a day. I mean, the mythology is extraordinary and incredibly effective, but I don't... And, hey, Steve, I could be wrong. First time for everything. I could easily be wrong about this, but I don't see any evidence at all that they have actually addressed the Scrounger narrative, or that this is designed to address the Scrounger narrative. But that's a massive failure of communications. It's almost as if they've announced the policy and then started justifying it, then started doing the messaging. I'm drawn to Jeff's point in Derby about the unnecessary haste with which they've done all this, to which I imagine they'd respond by saying, you inherit a £20 billion hole, you've got to start trying to fill it in on day one. Because, of course, every day of delay ends up costing even more money. But they seem to me to have got almost everything wrong. The policy is poorly conceived. The messaging is atrocious. The principles appear to be a million miles away from the detail. And the U-turn is imminent, I think, come Tuesday. I mean, what's worse, to get defeated with a majority the size of this one, or to undertake another U-turn? In terms of public opinion, a U-turn would be welcomed by everybody, except the only party that's really split on this are the Tories, according to the latest polling from More in Common this month. And the victory isn't going to happen. So what would be worse, the U-turn or the defeat? I don't know. Maybe there will be a victory. Maybe they'll be able to convince enough of these rebellious backbenchers that the detail actually does chime with the principle. But goodness me, it's Thursday and the vote's on Tuesday, and if they're only now turning their attention to that among their own MPs, how the hell are the rest of the country supposed to keep up? 10:52 is the time. Lucy is in Welwyn Garden City. Lucy, what would you like to say?
Yeah, so my mum suffers from multiple conditions, rheumatoid arthritis and COPD. Yesterday we had to get her a £25 round-trip taxi to a breathing clinic in the next town over. Now, anybody else, fit, healthy, all the rest of it, could have done that for £6 via the bus. Because of my mum's conditions, it cost her an extra £19, which she was able to afford through having PIP, even though she's in full-time work. If she's not paid enough for these additional costs to her life because of her conditions. I just feel that there is a hubris within the Parliamentary Labour Party, especially the Cabinet, because of the large-scale majority they have, that they've actually forgotten why people voted for them. And people voted for them for change, not more of the same. And this policy is pretty much more of the same as Conservative policy previously.
It's about a third. I mean, it doesn't go anywhere near as far. But what you prove,
it's still enough. It's still got people flocking to parties like Reform. Reform are happy and clappy at this, because whenever you go for that right-leaning
simple solutions to complicated problems.
It is, and it's completely upsetting seeing my mum under so much stress.
Yes.
Because she's worried, will she be able to afford to live?
And they've done that. They have done that.
Would she be able to afford to...
You heard Chrissy's call. You heard Chrissy's call. What about the possible constituency of people who are currently really, really worried, but when it kicks in, will realise that they didn't need to be?
Well, but the damage is done. Their faith, their trust has been shaken and lost already. So if they're all right now, what's to say they're going to be all right in a year's time when another black hole appears?
Yeah.
That's the problem. There is always going to be, in their mind, if they could do it this time round, and they've done it to some people, when am I next? When am I next? And because we've just had 14 years of that. We've had 14 years of cuts going through and kept on being told, no, austerity is ending. Austerity never ended. It never ended for the poorest of people. It never ended for the most vulnerable.
The unhelpful but important point that we are in enormous debt and our bills are rising and the government cannot, or the country, the tax take is not enough to sustain the status quo. Therefore, something has to give.
If you move people out of paying taxes, like my mum, she's in full-time work, she is paying taxes. If she can't afford to work because she no longer has PIP, then the tax is going to go down anyway. There is enough many ways to get out of this. But unfortunately, no one is thinking of bigger pictures and bigger things. We're just too busy racing to the bottom. And, you know, why are we letting Thames Water off so much money? Why have we still got £2 billion worth of loans, PPE loans still outstanding? 2 billion, that's 40% of the 5 billion
and 40 billion on Brexit, which no one ever talks about anymore either. But it's relevant to you mentioned Reform doing very well in the polls, which is extraordinary when you consider the role that their key players played in the what Michael Bloomberg described this week as the stupidest thing any country has ever done to itself. And you'd have to be deluded to argue with that. Lucy, thank you. I'm sorry your mum is in that situation, and it's a bit pathetic to say I hope it turns out better than we're currently expecting. But as you point out, even if it does, then a lot of damage has been done. And this is just really bad politics. There's literally nobody likes this except people who've bought into the scrounger narrative or haven't really thought beyond, well, we've got to save some money, therefore let's go after the people in wheelchairs. Maybe could we get wheelchairs with 3 wheels? I mean, that would save a fortune. That kind of mentality, which I don't think we should take seriously, but sadly, since 2016, it seems to be the driving force of British discourse and British politics, and Labour was supposed to be an antidote to that. I don't think he is pursuing the scrounger narrative, but what is he pursuing? A goal that involves people who are not currently in work getting the help they need to go to work. But he's making cuts to the system designed to deliver that. Look, I'm a bear of very little brain, but that's how it looks to me, and I am warm towards the Labour government, the Labour Party in general. I've never voted for anyone else in a general election, even when I found the leadership to be suboptimal. But if I don't get it, who the hell does? Who is it that is sitting there going, yeah, this is great. Give it a week. So I could see it with you, Les. Not least because I got a mate in Uxbridge who kept me up to date with what was going on the ground. And the scaremongering about ULEZ was extraordinary. And I knew within about an hour of the vote being delivered in that by-election before the last general election, ULEZ would disappear. It would disappear entirely. The minute it was introduced, it would disappear from the headlines. All the weirdos going around chopping down cameras, all of the kind of self-appointed social media big shots, desperately trying to whip up anger and violence and criminal damage and the rest of it. It was going to disappear. Anyone who understood the issue and had studied the statistics knew that it was nonsense. It was largely designed, that whole anti-ULEZ movement, to allow people who hate Sadiq Khan because he's brown and a Muslim to pretend that they actually hated him for more substantive reasons than that. And the minute it arrived, the controversy disappeared. I don't think this is the same. Because I can't. I've studied the number. I've looked as closely as I can at what is going on, and I either can't work it out or don't think it's going to do what they say it's going to do. And that is appalling politics. That is, a question of if it's a second Ming vase, he hasn't even stepped onto the ice rink with it. He's drop-kicked it into row Z. And I don't know what's going to happen on Tuesday. And I hope that detail emerges to demonstrate that it's nowhere near as bad as it currently appears. But you can't see it, can you? And if you can't see it, it's because they're not showing you. It's not your job to go out and decide and work out for yourself. You need to be given the evidence, given the proof, given the detail that you need to make a decision, and they haven't done that. It's a mess. It's too early to have a phone-in about whether or not Starmer's going to lead the Labour Party into the next general election. It is far too early. But goodness me, the noises off are growing in volume, aren't they?
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 3 minutes after 11 and you are listening to James O'Brien on LBC. A lot of people still wanting to talk about this bill, and we didn't really get into the deeper malaise of the Labour Party, why the politics is so bad, possibly because we don't know, possibly because the bill is so near the surface of our contemplations at the moment. We will move on because I know that colleagues will be returning to this territory, and indeed likely so will we between now and Tuesday, when the vote is still scheduled to take place. We will have to wait and see. We haven't done a light-hearted issue since, well, goodness knows what, we haven't done anything this week, so I'm going to do something a bit light-hearted next. But first, just to clarify on that point about the messaging coming out before the policy. The Guardian reported last week, and this is quite, I think, relevant to what we were talking about in the last hour, that government officials have admitted they made a mistake by making the financial case for cutting benefits. This is why I said that I don't believe they are actually appealing to the scrounger narrative. But by focusing upon how much money they hope to save, that's what it looks like. So when Steve in Hertfordshire talked about appealing to gammons, which if you don't know is a sort of phrase used to describe sort of particularly hard of thinking people who are persuaded that by just being horrible to enough other people, their own lives would get better. Whether it's immigrants or disabled people or unemployed people or single mothers or I don't know, whoever it is, just be horrible, make their lives that bit worse, then my life will get better, I think is the best way to describe that mindset. By focusing on the £5 billion savings that the Treasury would make, it looked like part of the same narrative that people like Mel Stride and Kemi Badenoch were punting in the last government. Whereas if they'd focused instead upon the that just being, if you like, a happy consequence of helping people who aren't currently working or are but aren't working as much as they might with the proper help, then that would have just felt very different. That's why, actually, Chrissy talked about optics at the very top of the show. And that is a perfect illustration of it. A perfect illustration of it. 5 minutes after 11 is the time. So, my age doesn't matter, does it? Because it's my marital status that matters, my relationship status that matters. I have been married for 25 years to, I still sometimes pinch myself. How lucky I am to be married to the woman that I'm married to, which is a wonderful and a very, very, very lucky position to be in after so long. But you can work out with fairly basic mathematics that the entire world of dating apps passed me by. I have never been near one, even as a tourist, if there is such a thing. Presumably anybody over 50 who has been in a relationship for over 20 years has, unless you've been cheating upon your partner, you rot bag, is going to be in the same position as me. You have absolutely no idea. So here's the evolution of my attitudes to dating apps. At first, I didn't get them at all. I thought they were a bit weird and strictly for losers. Which was odd, really, because I was never very good at instigating conversation. I couldn't march. I had friends who could do it. Martin Lewis used to be very good at this when we were at college. And I'm not breaching any confidences here because he talked about it when he appeared on Full Disclosure. But he could like sash. He's also a very good dancer. Who would have thought that the money-saving expert was the John Travolta of the London School of Economics in the mid-1990s? But he could sashay over a dance floor, busting some serious moves and just start conversations with people. I could never do that. If I saw you in a bar, I said, "Can I buy you a drink?" I'd be having paroxysms of anxiety. I even, like, as a kid, when you're phoning people up on your dad's landline, I'd hang up before the dial tones, before the ringtone started. I don't know why. I'm very confident in some ways, annoyingly so, but not on that. I have fear of rejection. Goodness knows, I must talk to my therapist about it, try and work out where it comes from. So I couldn't do that. All of my relationships, and I haven't had that many because I've been married for so long, were started in circumstances where I kind of had a captive audience. That makes me sound a bit stalkery. Where I was working with someone, or I was sitting next to someone at a dinner. Or do you see what I mean? Where it would have been weird if I didn't talk to them. That's probably the best way of putting it. Whereas I think a lot of dating, a lot of traditional dating begins when it is quite weird that you do talk to them. It's quite weird to march up to somebody and say, "Can I buy you?" To me, at least, it is. So I don't know why I had a problem with that dating apps. It was probably a sort of bit of projection, actually. I don't know whether I'd have been any good on them. I've got absolutely no idea. And touch wood, I never will know. But I can tell you this, they've not just peaked, but they've plummeted. One of them has seen its share price fall by 92% over the last 5 years. Another, the owner of Tinder, has fallen by 68%. People are laying off. Bumble, which is American but has offices in the UK, is axing 240 jobs. What was the phrase that my colleague used? Burnout. dating app burnout. I can't say kids because these people are in their 20s and 30s, but this more than anything else in the news today prompted colleagues. It may be the nature of my treatment, possibly my contemplations upon the state of Keir Starmer's government didn't excite my younger colleagues. But when I mentioned this, they all joined in. They all chimed in. Yep, I've had enough of it. One of them even said she didn't think that her friends who met, or one friend who met her partner on a dating app was in a, quotes, proper, end quotes, relationship. It was all a little bit two-dimensional. It was, you know, you see a picture of someone that you like and then you end up going out with them. You haven't exactly dug deeply. But... so that's on one hand. On the other hand, I've got friends who are married now who met on apps. In fact, I'm so old that I attended weddings where it was a secret that the bride and groom had met through an app because it was still considered to be a little bit weird and a little bit sad is the right word to use, isn't it? It's a bit sad because it meant you couldn't really, you know, in real life. Yeah. So I've been at weddings where I knew that the bride and groom had met on an app because I was very close to one of them, but everybody else there, including on one occasion the parents, she didn't want to tell her parents because she knew they'd think it was a bit weird. That is extraordinary. If you think about the evolution of, it would have been online, wouldn't it, back in the day, not an app. What was it called before Tinder and things like that came along? There's Go Fish and Match.com. Are they dead now? Do they still exist? Plenty of Fish, not Go Fish. That's a card game, isn't it? So anyone who thought I was exaggerating my ignorance of this phenomenon has now been absolutely disabused of the notion. I know nothing at all about it. Mark says, it used to be that online dating was for weirdos. Now asking people out in person is for weirdos. What a time to be alive. But you're wrong, you see, because young people across the UK are going back to the old-fashioned way of doing things. Generation Z is embracing the old-fashioned dating scene. I don't even know what that is. But I do know that the apps have taken a massive dive. And I'd like you to tell me why. Why have we seen... because I did this probably 10 years ago. And it was, why have they become so popular? Why is everybody doing this now? And 10 years later, why has everything started going into reverse? What is dating app burnout? Why do you think... and remember, I don't want to... I sometimes worry when I tell you not to ring in if you hold certain positions or certain opinions, because otherwise we get a bit sidetracked and a bit waylaid. I'm delighted that you met your partner online or via a dating app. I really am, and it's wonderful that you're still together. But don't ring me, okay? Because that's not what the phone-in is about. Well, no, actually, that's not true. By all means, ring me if you think you've got insights into what's gone wrong or what has changed. So, sorry. So it's not, your status, your relationship status that should disqualify you from this conversation. It's your lack of an insight or a lack of opinion about why the big ones, Tinder, Hinge, they peaked during the pandemic. So it's happened really quickly. Over the past 5 years, the pandemic was a massive peak. Since then... It's all gone south. And I just want to know why. So people who used to be on there all the time, people who've had dates, people who've had lots of experiences are no longer doing it. In fact, 63% of men and 66% of women between the ages of 16 and 24 prefer meeting potential partners in real life. Only 10% of men and 7% of women prefer dating apps. It's skewed away from women, who account for just 35% of users. We can probably begin to work out why, but I want you to tell me rather than me telling you. And I kind of want if you like, a sociological analysis of what has changed in our world that has made this once incredibly popular practice increasingly unpopular. Well, why is it going off a cliff? Why do you think dating app burnout has become such a widespread condition that apps that were once the destination of choice for swathes of the population are now hemorrhaging staff, seeing their share price plummet, and seeing fewer and fewer people actually use the service? What has gone wrong? Why has the novelty worn off? And why don't younger people like it as well? I do have younger listeners. I do have plenty of listeners in the 16 to 24-year-old age group. Why are they particularly averse to the app-based meeting as opposed to the real-life one, okay? 0345 6060 973 is the number you need. Gen Z gets back to the real-life dating scene is one of the headlines today, but it's the detail that informs the story, and it's the 240 jobs being axed, it's the plummeting share price, it's the huge unpopularity among 16 to 24-year-olds, and the sense that what was once, and it felt like it had changed the dating game forever, and it now appears to be in fairly swift retreat. Tell me why on 0345 6060 973.
James O'Brien on LBC.
What are they like if you're my age? It must be really weird to need to dip. I dread to think about it. It's almost an anxiety dream. I'd probably live out my days on my own, actually, if Mrs. O'Brien ever came to her senses. But if you did have to dip your toes back into the dating pool, and all of the traditional ways of doing it are dead and gone, you know, the pubs hardly places where you could start. So what is it actually like? So as we observe the, it's not the end, but it's certainly an epic decline in dating apps. I want you to tell me, because this isn't going to be a data-based answer, is it? There'll be a million different answers to the question of why do you think they've plummeted in popularity? David's in Hull. David, what can you tell us?
Hi. They're awful.
I'm going to need a little bit more than that.
Okay. Divorced in the last 2 years, 50 years of age.
Right.
Went on there to make myself feel a bit better, make myself feel still attractive to people.
Yes, fair enough.
Yeah, you know, not a bad thing. So you get a few likes, you subscribe, you have a couple of chats backwards and forwards, but most of the time you get ghosted. You know, you say, hi, you know, answer the opening question that they've posed, you know,
yes.
What's your favourite holiday destination? And you give the information back.
What do you say? What do you say? You don't say Filey, do you?
No, I actually would love to go and see the Kennedy Space Centre, but yeah, it's a bit niche. But there we go.
Yes, it is a bit niche. And what do you think that these people are looking for, if not for you?
Well, it's like a catalogue.
Yeah.
You know, the first thing you do is you swipe up pictures.
It's brutal, isn't it? I mean, in fact, just listening to your early comments makes me wonder how it became so popular in the first place. I mean, it became a figure of speech swiping, didn't it? Swiping right and swiping left. It's absolutely brutal. It reduces us to top trump cards. You'll remember those, David.
Yes, I do, yeah.
That's what you are on there, aren't you? Make you feel rubbish.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also psychologically by the providers designed to try and hook you back in. So your subscription comes to an end, and miraculously you get a like or two that you didn't have for the last 6 months. So you subscribe again, you say hello to the people that liked you, and you hear nothing.
I'm sorry. So that's rubbish, that is. That's really unfair.
Well, it is what it is.
It is, but I accept my sympathy, because I think I'd be in the same position as you. Someone asked me where I want to go on holiday, and I'd say Kidderminster, and I'd never hear from anyone ever again.
I've never been.
It's got a lovely carpet. It's got a lovely carpet museum, David. It's right up your Strasse. So what are you going to do?
I am healing after a pretty brutal divorce, and I'm going to be single.
Yeah,
I just don't need the knock to my mental health anymore.
Wow. I mean, you haven't really answered the question of why they have become unpopular. You've answered the question of why they should never have become popular in the first place.
Well, Bumble itself used to be the different one.
Did it?
Bumble used to be the only one where the woman had to make the first contact.
Oh, okay.
So for those of us that, you know, have lack of self-confidence, etc.,
yes,
that was a great app.
Of course. What went wrong?
Now they've changed it.
Oh, have they? Well, presumably because it wasn't producing enough business.
Exactly. So, yeah.
Well,
so you put yourself out there, and you hear nothing.
And and that you put yourself out. Excuse me. You put yourself out there and you hear nothing. That's a brutal description. I wish you well, mate. I really do. But as you say, you've got to look after your mental health. What about younger people? David's my age. I think Maria's up next, is more or less my age. The focus of the story is that people aged between 16 and 24 aren't going anywhere near them. Why not? 0345 6060 973. And of course, if you're between those generations, if you're between those age groups, you get to answer the question from both sides. You may, it's people who aren't even starting on them are at one end of the story, and David and others who have had a go and decided it's not for them are at the other end of the story. Part of me now, and I told you I was completely ignorant about this when it started, part of me now is wondering how they ever became so popular in the first place. Do you look back on them with a sense of, regret, embarrassment, shame? That whole swiping business, I think that's, for those of us who've never done it, that's probably the hardest thing to understand. It reduces you to a thumbnail sketch. We talk about objectification being a bad thing, but what are you basing it on if you swipe? Not hobbies, is it? Or holiday destinations. Simply whether or not in that first instance... How many people are madly in love with people that they didn't fancy the first time they saw them? My wife is. I'm not. I'm oversharing again. My wife is mad. I hope she's still madly in love. But how many people are married to or in long-term relationships with people that they didn't immediately fancy? You see? You've killed that phenomenon. Stone dead with the swiping and the apps. Some of the women that have ghosted David or ignored David could have fallen head over heels with him if they'd got to know him. But they're never going to get to know him if it's so... What's the word I want? One-dimensional at the very beginning. Sol's in Cambridge. Sol, what would you like to say?
Morning, James. I'm coming at this from a slightly different angle. So at the moment, I'm working on building a dating app to solve a lot of the problems that you've raised so far. And I'm in a long-term relationship, so I haven't used them in a while. But
did you meet your partner on one?
I didn't, no. I met her at uni.
Actually, when I say did you meet your partner on one, in 1980s that had a rather different meaning. I met on a dating app, but no, you met her at university in a more traditional way. So yeah, how do you know what's wrong with the ones that are currently out there?
Well, a lot of it is from friends, speaking to friends. I've had to do some research for this app, of course. And it's kind of... You see almost people in the pub scrolling through these apps, looking at people's profiles with their mates, the same way that you might scroll through Instagram stories or a Facebook feed. And it's almost the swipe. Oh, I like them. Maybe they'll like me back and send me something funny. That's it. End of conversation.
Do you think that the rise... Because the rise of Instagram and Facebook feeds has come subsequent to the rise of the dating app. And I wonder whether psychologically reducing dating to something that feels a little bit like scrolling through cat videos or in my case, bizarrely at the moment, I'm getting a lot of ping pong videos, as in table tennis. Could that be part of it? In that subconsciously people don't want their relationship choices to feel the same as their time-wasting scrolling choices, or not? Am I overthinking it?
No, yeah, I mean, it is in the same way that TikTok is extremely short-form content.
Yes.
It is extremely short-form content.
Yes.
It is a few seconds.
Yes. So what's yours going to be like? I don't know if I'm going to let you plug it yet, but tell me what...
It doesn't exist.
Oh, right.
Don't worry.
Well, there you go. Well, should we try and think of a name for it together? Do you want to crowdsource the name?
If you get any good text.
Have you got a name already?
We've got a potential name.
Okay. Don't say it. No, don't say it. Someone will nick it. What would you call it? Keith, have you got any thoughts on a good name for a new... So anyway, what's it going to do differently? We need to know that first.
We find out more about people. So we get you to connect your Spotify, we get you to connect maybe your Strava, your Netflix, all sorts of different things. And then we just give you a few really, really high-quality, good matches.
Okay, that could work. Do you know what I'd call it?
Go on.
Deep.
Deep?
Deep.
I like that.
Go deep. I shouldn't have told you that, should I? I should have charged you. It cost you £500,000 this from a consultancy firm. That's your slogan as well, go deep. Don't go shallow, go deep.
I like that a lot.
It's bloody great, mate. Oh, rats, press rewind. Oh, I can't, he's heard it. I can't even do... 1% of equity when if you turn out to be a unicorn, you'll see me right, won't you, Sol?
I'll sort you out.
Promise. Promise. This is contractually binding. It happened on the radio. There you go. So that's what you want, isn't it? And if you can do that on an app, then he's on to a winner. But why Why have they become so unpopular? Stella is in Hammersmith. Stella, what would you like to say?
Hello, James. Thank you for taking my call. I've been single and I'm dating at now for over a decade.
I'm not ghosting you, but your phone, something has gone horribly wrong with your phone line in the brief sojourn between speaking to the producer and speaking to me. So we will fix that while I say hello to Maria in Staines. Maria, what made you pick up the phone?
Hello. Well, that's a terrible name for start. Sounds like a porn site. Go deep.
Oh, all right. Everyone's a critic. Mate, that's it. That says more about you than it does about me, Maria.
Well, I've been on these sites for about 7 years.
Yes.
And I've got to say, I've always found them really useful, simply because I think you get to know somebody pretty quickly. People let out their madness really quickly in text. So there are things that they say to you that you'd probably be on date for before someone's got the guts to... quirks, people's weird quirks that they sort of come out with. And
really? I just thought the opposite. I thought you'd be able to hide your quirks for much longer.
No. People are very forward with what they like and what they want to do, and then straight away you're like, well, that's not my thing, so you can just unmatch them, and that's it. Don't
change this. What are we talking about? Kinks here, or are we talking about odd hobbies?
I can't say it on daytime radio.
No, okay, don't that. So you are, yeah, all right, fine. I mean, what kind of apps are you on? Normal ones?
Yeah, of course. Bumble, Tinder, Hinge, they're all the same. And the other thing is, the first time, because I was married and living with someone for 20 years.
Yes.
So when I joined, like you, I mean, we weren't even texting. I had a brick phone.
Yeah.
And so the initial thought of doing it, I was terrifying. Yeah. So I did a paid one, and it was all these wonderful professionals, wonderful...
A bureau, a dating agency, as it were.
Kind of, yes. Yeah. But everyone was looking. I was 45. I'd been married. I had 3 children. And there were these professional men that were that age, but looking for 30-year-olds that wanted to start a family. You know, they concentrated on their careers. So I realised after 3 months this was a waste of time. So I went down the route of free apps, and you saw all those same people on there as well. And I just found it quite liberating. Like I said, people are just open and honest. And when I go out...
Well, you're not here to tell me why they're becoming less popular, are you? You're just here to tell me why you like them.
Well, no, I was going to say, now that I'm 52, for the last few years, from when I hit 50... it's just dropped off. It's like rubbish. I don't see anyone on there that I like. Who I see I find quite strange.
Well, it's chicken and egg then.
I don't know what it is.
It's chicken and egg then. That might be because they're becoming less popular and they're being less used. You're getting less action, so to speak.
Well, yeah, and I think people of a certain age, the good eggs are taken.
Yeah, sorry about that.
And you do only have the strange ones that are left.
I don't think that's true, is it?
But I think your argument of, swiping and it being quite superficial.
Shallow, not deep.
Shallow. It's the same thing if you were going out and you saw somebody at the bar. The reason you're going to approach them, you don't know anything about them. It's the same principle. You're just approaching them because you like the look of them. So that's no different. In fact, you actually know more about.
Yeah, but as soon as you start talking, you can decide whether or not you like someone. You can't do that. It's not the same thing at all. As soon as you start
texting and you start getting an idea of how someone talks and how they form a sentence, you can hear somebody's voice in their writing. Of course you can.
Okay. Well, I mean, again, that doesn't help me understand why people are not using them. Why would the young people... I need to speak to someone of a younger vintage than you and me, Maria, about why they find the idea really quite repellent. They would not want to do it in a million years. They'd much rather do it in real life. I think on reflection, and I'm sure Solo's probably decided as well, that the name that we came up with for his new dating site does lend itself to double entendres a little bit too easily, which shows why the consultants charge £500,000. It's not as easy as it looks, coming up with a name for a dating site. Here's Thomas Watts with your headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
3 minutes after 11. David's comments about mental health have sort of come back round in my mind during that little break. I'd never really thought about that. I told you, Alan found it ridiculous that someone who talks on the radio all day can be intimidated by going up to people and trying to initiate conversations. But I really do. I don't know. I'm pretty sure I still would now. I don't get as socially nervous as I did when I was a younger man, but I still wouldn't relish the prospect of just wandering up to somebody and trying to initiate a conversation. But the mental health, talk to me a bit about that as well, about what David said, about that kind of commoditization of romance and the idea that you're not getting responses or you're feeling judged, the swiping element of it all. Because what we're trying to work out is why they are declining so rapidly in popularity. And what I haven't got yet is somebody in that target area of Generation Z or thereabouts who just finds the idea ridiculous. I don't want to meet someone on it. Because you've grown up online. That's what I find weird about this story, about these statistics. You've grown up online. You do everything online. You order your dinner online. You do your homework online. You watch your movies online. You don't watch normal television anymore. You're watching YouTube and streamers, and you've got everything you do is online. Most of your social life is. There's the mystery. It's only taken me 34 minutes to get to the heart of it. I'm getting good at this. That's the mystery, isn't it? So this is my daughter's generation. They do absolutely everything online, and yet they don't date. They don't do dating online in ways that all previous generations that led less online lives embraced the notion of online dating a lot more enthusiastically. Well, why? Why would that be? So as someone who fits into the target generation, loosely 16 to 24, but, there's a little bit of give at the upper end, why do you think your lot, having grown up online, are rejecting in your droves, the notion of doing your dating online? That's really odd. The more you think about it, the odder it becomes. Do absolutely everything online, to paraphrase Meatloaf, but I won't do that. 0345 6060 973. Amelia is in Basingstoke. Amelia, what would you like to say?
Hi, I am 27 years old. I would like to just put my ideas forward as a young'un, not quite hitting the age range yet.
You're a lot younger than me, so fill your boots.
I've just got some ideas as to why I don't think people are using them anymore.
Yeah.
I am currently in a relationship, so I don't use them now. But
Did you meet online?
Category.
Did you meet online?
No, I met organically, actually. Okay. Met in person.
That sounds like you met on a farm, but I know what you mean. Carry on.
So I think one of the big things is kind of how the internet is nowadays, and the fact that, I don't say we because I did only use the internet when I was about 12 upwards, but we've grown up with the internet, and I think the nice ideas that dating apps used to have originally have been kind of tainted with all these bad stories, and you don't trust people on the internet anymore.
Okay.
I think your parents kind of give you that idea of the internet is bad, there's bad people. But not only that, but you can kind of be whoever you want to be on the internet. And I think some people paint that with a bad brush, if that makes sense.
No, of course it does. Of course it does.
You just don't trust anyone on the internet anymore.
I hadn't thought of that. And so in that sort of in the early days, it was all quite friendly. Just think of Twitter as an example. It was a fairly lovely place for a long time, and now it's absolutely hideous. So why would you want to be, unless you enjoy hideousness? And that idea that, well, what about online meetings that are not via dating apps? I don't know. Is that a thing? Do you connect with people because you're watching? You don't, do you? Because you're watching the same stuff or anything like that. So it's going to go back. It's going to go back to real life. It's going to go back to what you call organically.
Yeah, I was going to say I think people really like nowadays young'uns about the idea of the ideology of meeting someone in person is so romanticized, and that idea that was normal to you guys now is so idolized.
Well, you're never going to get a film like Casablanca made about people meeting on a dating app, are you? Is this what meet cute means?
Yeah, essentially.
So-
I think it's just, bumping into someone or someone sharing a table at a coffee shop or just something like that. I think the internet draws people down so much in the sense of we're always on our phones.
Yeah.
That the opportunity to meet someone just out and about, people don't speak to people anymore.
Those two combinations, the growing awareness of how much nastiness lurks on the internet, coupled with the conclusion you led me to, the realisation that they've tried to make films about people who've met online, but they're never going to have the heft of a When Harry Met Sally or of a Casablanca or of anything like that. And that's what you want. You don't, you never want to write poems about a dating app. You're going to write poems about romantic meetings. And for people who don't know, meet cute is a very popular phrase among the younger generations that essentially describes, usually in rom-coms, isn't it, in a romantic comedy where two characters meet for the first time in a charming way or in a funny way, a meet cute, and it then leads to a relationship. That's a big one. That's a really good contribution from Amelia, because it took me a while to get there, but the real mystery here is why people who've lived their lives online don't do this online. Matteo is in Chiswick. Matteo, what would you like to say?
Hello, James. Yes.
Hello, mate.
So this is quite a pertinent one for me, I think, because a lot of people in my generation obviously teeter on these dating apps, right? So
how old are you?
There is a choice of joining and then pausing and then rejoining, and I think that in itself is kind of part of the issue. There's no real sort of commitment with it. It's kind of sort of a semi investment in it, and with that, there's obviously a lack.
Yes.
There's then a lack of sort of commitment to it, and then you're less likely to form genuine connections. So, I mean, for instance, myself, I'm much more a fan of an organic encounter.
Is that the word everyone uses, organic? Because it makes me think of manure. It's not. I mean, it shouldn't. It's my problem. It's the perfect word to describe. IRL sounds ridiculous.
What would you use instead?
IRL, mate. IRL.
That's the thing. I mean, it is the buzzword right now, but I think naturally. Yeah, it is.
At the farmers market. Very good farmers market.
Yeah, well, I don't mind meeting at a farmers market.
Well, Jarvis Cocker sings about meeting at a farmers market on his new album, on Pulp's new album. So that could be the new dating app. So it's a depth. It's a shallowness then that you're rejecting.
Definitely.
Window shopping.
And I think there's definitely a sort of exactly. And there's a prejudice that a lot of people go into it with, where you kind of assume that people you meet on there are really only in it for one reason, and aren't really genuinely there to sort of search for, quote unquote love.
So if it was actually delivering romance and relationship, it wouldn't be diminishing in popularity, but it's almost, as it seems to happen to almost everything online.
Well, exactly.
It eventually gets overtaken by the bad actors.
No, exactly. And then, naturally, the ones that are there for sort of a more sort of genuine reason sort of get overshadowed and sort of, they're not really getting what they should be getting out of the apps. And I think, your point of saying,
I like this.
My generation naturally spends
you do everything
time online.
Yes.
Well, exactly.
But why don't? But you don't do this because also it's not cool. I mean, it feels like it's owned by your parents' generation, or at least owned by people in there who are much older than you, and you don't want to be doing the things that people older than you were doing.
Well, exactly. That's part of the point. And I think naturally that because we spend so much of our life online, it's refreshing to also have sort of an alternative in sort of romance and in other sides of our lives where we don't necessarily have to be sat there staring at a screen and window shopping. Because
lovely. What do you think that? And I obviously I can't expect you to speak for all 26-year-olds, but what has it done to social skills? Because the temptation would be to think that it would have destroyed social skills, but this research suggests otherwise. If people are actually preferring the quotes organic end quotes, then it means that they've actually developed social skills even as they've grown up increasingly online.
Well, that's a really good point. I think it sort of counterintuitively, there's sort of different people that have sort of more social skills online versus in person. So you have certain people that are much more confident texting, but then when you meet them in person, they're a bunch of dribble. So it's. But then
and the terminally online people are likely to be the saddest sacks of all, even as they create online a completely bogus image. So that would be part of the rejection of it all by normal people as well. I wonder how much of it incel culture has contributed to as well. The idea that men really don't want to be like that and girls really don't want to be with men like that. Thank you, Matteo. That line Lucy picks up on about fashion, I think maybe young people don't want to use dating apps because they're just not cool anymore. Young people don't want to use the same apps and do the same things that their parents' generation are doing. It's the Facebook user range shift all over again. But I do still have, brilliant answers notwithstanding from Amelia and Matteo, I do still have an issue with the idea of living your whole life online but not wanting to do this bit of it online when previous generations have embraced it very enthusiastically. Let's go back to Stella in Hammersmith, whose line has been restored. Stella, where were we?
Thank you, James. Yes, I'm a very much older user.
Yes.
And I've been on dating sites on and off for over a decade now. I've had 2 really, really good long-term relationships, and a more recent one from Bumble, which started in December, which I think is going okay.
Why do you think the popularity of the apps themselves is in decline?
Well, when I first started, the main site at the time was a site called OkCupid.
Yes.
And you were required to fill out at least 100 questions about your worldview and ethics.
Okay.
And so there was a huge amount of, you had to commit really quite a lot of time and effort. And then it would give you a percentage match, so I'm a committed humanist, so it would match me up with other people who were secularists. And it was pretty good at doing that sort of stuff. And, if you read the Daily Mail, please do not talk to me. So, and so virtually everybody they suggested to me, I was vaguely interested in.
So this is chicken and egg then? Does it just mean that there's fewer... as it becomes less popular, it becomes less popular, if that's not a stupid thing to say. If everyone is filling in a 100-question form, everyone's going to find someone that they're likely to crack on with.
So I get a tsunami of people now.
Right.
But most of them are rubbish and, they can't even put a sentence together. But it's all about now, it's swiping. In those days, people wanted to exchange sort of quite long texts or emails before you met, whereas now it just seems to be a swipe. It's all about appearance.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people on there, I think, now who maybe have had a bit of a spat with their partner. They're just kind of like window shopping. I hope the latest relationship continues to go well, Stella, but the idea that they're no longer as likely to find somebody that you'd want to spend time with is holding true across all the generations. And I suggest that the younger generation is a little bit more emotionally literate than some of the older forebears. That the reason why they're rejecting it is the reason why the older brothers and sisters or parents embraced it. They what you found exciting, not Stella, but other people, the swiping, the access, the idea of there being so many fish in the sea and you having a hook dangling in the water, poised to catch one of them, is less attractive to people. I find, and this is largely anecdotal, but because of course there are some terrible stories around, and there does seem to be a huge problem with misogyny among young boys, young men. But I find the young people I know much, much keener to have proper relationships than we were when we were their age. And maybe this swipification of courtship doesn't feel like a passport towards a proper relationship. I don't know, I'm thinking out loud. It's 11:46.
James O'Brien on LBC.
11:49 is the time. I suppose, in a way, something that just happened here in this very room is an illustration of the changing nature of our online engagement. So someone, I won't tell you who, but someone who has recently appeared on Full Disclosure, and we didn't swap phone numbers like we usually do. I know them really well, but they've been trying to get in touch with me. But I didn't know because they were DMing me on Twitter, which I don't go on anymore. So he's picked up the phone, or they have picked up the phone and called the producer at LBC and said, "Can you get James to check his messages? I'm trying to get hold of him." And a year ago, I'd have seen that within 2 seconds of it being sent, and I'd have replied to it by now, and we'd be having lunch together tomorrow. So it changes, and what makes it change is the other people. Other people make it change. You haven't changed. You're still looking for love, but something has happened to the dating apps because of other people that have made them unattractive places. So that's for the people who use them and don't anymore. I'm even more interested, perhaps, by the people that just don't fancy it at all. And what I have found most intriguing, you've probably noticed, is this apparent contradiction contained within the idea that people who spend their whole lives online, i.e. people who are aged 16 to 24, who have grown up online, are the least likely to be engaging with these apps where you look for love. So they are least likely to be doing online. The people who've spent their whole lives online are least likely to be doing this one thing online, even though they do almost everything else. Fascinating. Viv is in Belfast. Viv, what would you like to say?
Hi. I've not called in before, so I'm quite nervous.
It's only me.
So I run a board game club, and I've noticed that people want friendships more than romantic relationships, and they generally then get comfortable and get to know people really well, and we've actually had relationships stemming from that.
Oh yeah, well that's a lovely place to meet someone, isn't it? Because you've got absolutely no, you've got focus and opportunity, so you don't have to drum up conversation out of nowhere. Organically, to use the word of the day, you can talk about the game, you can talk about what you're doing, and also you've got opportunity, you've got company. What a wonderful! Well, how long have you been running it?
It will be 3 years in July.
And how many people do you get there? How many people come along roughly on a good night?
We've got quite a few actually.
Yeah.
We have 5 rooms, so it makes it really good for role-playing games and board games and stuff. So.
Yeah.
We started it after the pandemic because people were really lonely, and we wanted to create communities which were strong. So that's why we started. We're a CIC, so, you know, it's not about the money, because if you're waiting to make money out of board games, you'll never make anything.
What's a CIC? Sorry, I should know.
Oh, Community Interest Company.
Okay.
So all our profit goes back into the community, and we do fundraisers for other charities and things.
Oh, lovely thing.
So
where is it? Do you want to give yourself a plug? Patrick's in Belfast. You've already got one potential new member.
We're in the Twin Spires in West Belfast, but we're very, very open to everyone.
That sounds lovely. There's one under the bridge near Waterloo Station. Do you know that one? I don't know if you're in London much, but there's a really cool, or there was, I haven't checked recently, but we went there quite a bit back in the day. And there's a right old mixture of stuff. You can have a game of chess in one corner, and they'll be playing, as you say, a massive dungeon-based game in the other. And that's, I think that's...
I found the game clubs themselves, as in not necessarily shops, and...
Yes.
The clubs, especially in London on board, is oversubscribed every single night.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's there's a meetup app, and they have about 12 or 13 meetups, and they're always full.
I'm not surprised, because you're getting entertainment and interaction. I think it's called the Board Game Cafe, the one that I'm thinking of. I love it, and that is more like I could meet someone in that environment. Someone who's a bit... I wouldn't necessarily say I was socially awkward, but I get quite anxious. I'm not very good at starting conversations with people, except on the radio. And therefore...
Well, we found people with social anxiety are doing much better.
Yeah, I bet they are. Absolutely bet they are.
So it's a really nice environment, and we've had, one couple get engaged.
That's fantastic. And the only way is up. I don't suppose you've got the Mystery Hour board game, have you, in stock?
Yeah, and we were actually selling it, and we sold out at Christmas.
Give this woman a round of applause, Keith, please. That was I almost didn't introduce that into the conversation. There it is. That's sensational news. Thank you. And that, no doubt, don't spoil this, Viv. That's the marriage, isn't it? That was playing the Mystery Hour board game that brought that couple together, and they're going to call their first child James. I think that's lovely. That's such a great story, Viv. Thank you. It is 11:55. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. The Twin Spires in West Belfast. I was going to offer a freebie then as well, but they don't need it, do they? It's already in place. 11:55 is the time. James is in Bagshot. James, what would you like to say?
Hi, yeah, I can say that James is a great name.
Well, you say that. Actually, I like to do something a bit silly at 12 o'clock on Fridays. On the radio, this isn't a confession. Guess what the most popular name to be changed was last year?
Oh, I'm going to have to take James on, eh?
You're going to have to, yeah, and you'd be right. Why would anybody want to change their name from James?
No, I had that, yeah. I went to a boarding school, and I think a lot of people did that. I think a lot of them changed it to Jake and Jack, and I was one of the very few, actually, Jameses that decided to stick with it.
I think, but this is deed poll, though. This isn't just adopting a kind of diminutive or something like that. The most deed poll changed name
in the country last year was James. People are changing it to some... I mean, literally on their passports and on their... But anyway, so I may do that tomorrow. So I haven't told Eleanor yet, but I was thinking at 12 o'clock tomorrow we might do, why did you change your name? Because it's such an odd thing to do, except to the people who've done it, for whom it must have been the most natural thing in the world. I bet you can't remember why you rang in now.
Something about dating, I think.
That's the one. Carry on.
Yeah, so I'm 34, so I was coming from I thought was a middle-aged perspective, but I suppose that's maybe arguable.
Really. Yeah, go on.
I've been very on and off the site for quite a while, mostly off, to be honest. And I think, one of your caller echoing what they said earlier about the kind of sort of semi-interest that you have when you are doing these apps. I think, and for me, I think personally, I've never really wanted to say, look, I met the love of my life via a dating app. So that's maybe a bit snobbish, maybe perhaps, but I suppose that's kind of.
It's not snobbish. It's not quite the right word. He said, sounding like a right old miserable git. But you mean like, I don't know, the judgmental, or people who have met that way might be offended by what you say, but I'm not. I think it's perfectly natural. Yeah. You want your eyes to meet across a crowded room, don't you? Or because she's got a speck of dust in her eye on a steam train platform, and you produce your handkerchief to help remove it. So none of that is meet cute. None of the online stuff is meet cute, the saying of the day. Why do you think it's diminished, though? Because all of this explains why you don't like it. Why do you think the overall numbers have plummeted?
Yeah, I think a lot of your callers have sort of made some very good points to that. I'll just add as well that my sister-in-law actually worked for Bumble in a sort of safety support way.
Yes.
And she was always saying stories of the kind of just really cesspool of the things that she had to
nasty stuff
do on a daily basis.
That is, I mean, it's amazing how this has been one of those topics where we've added to our knowledge with every passing minute. I hope your sister-in-law isn't one of the 240 people poised to lose their job, but that most recent realisation that it is quite possibly, like everything else on the internet, it has been overcome by unpleasantness. I don't know how big a deal bots would be in this kind of space, because I think you have to pay to be on there, don't you? And also, what's the win for a bot? But, that is another reason why so many previously popular online sites have become much, much less popular over the years. I think we're done, but you're never going to guess what the next caller's called. Yeah, well, all right, well done. James is in Kensington with the last word on this. James, what would you like to say?
Hi, I'll just be quick. I'll start with an example. So my mate, he's got a sister or something like that, and she downloaded these dating apps, and in the first couple of hours, there's many, many likes. I'm talking, 20, 30, 40 likes.
Yes.
And then by the evening, 80 likes.
Right.
Now, a guy, I'm 23 years old, a guy like me, I'll download it. And, you'll get 1 like a day, 2, 3, 4, if you're lucky. So what I think happens is, the girls, they see all these blokes or guys liking them, and they get a bit overwhelmed. Like, crikey, all these people, you just almost shut it off, like you said earlier on, fatigue.
Yes.
And then you get guys like myself. That's right, exactly that. And then you get guys like me who just think, well, what's the point? Because I get fatigue on the other end of the spectrum, in the sense that, well, why am I going to bother?
The numbers support you as well. Men are much more likely to be on there than women, which means what you describe is much more likely to happen. And the only way you can...
Yeah.
And how old are you? 23. So we've gone from 53 to 23 in the course of this hour, but sounding, in some ways, quite similar to each other. And it would eventually be bad for your mental health to be putting yourself out there and not getting the just simple recognition, that simple hello, or just making a bit of eye contact, being completely ignored. Here I am, here's my best, I've put on my best bib and tucker, metaphorically speaking. I'm presenting my best version of myself to the world, and the world is not noticing. It's a sad old business, isn't it? James, you'll be better off doing it organically, mate. Get yourself down the farmer's market. It's just gone 12 noon. Find out why. Mystery Hour board game is so popular in Belfast, by experiencing the original, the real McCoy, the original Mystery Hour, now, because it's 12 noon and it's Thursday, which can mean only one thing.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 4 minutes after 12 and you are listening to James O'Brien on LBC, where Mystery Hour is upon us, your weekly opportunity to... Last week was a classic. Of course, the beauty of Global Player or the new LBC app is that you can download everything we do. You can listen to it whenever you want. But the Mystery Hour archive must be one of the major attractions of the internet in general, let alone the apps that we produce in this building. But last week was a real humdinger, wasn't it? I don't want to jinx anything, but it feels like we're mining a rich seam on Mystery Hour this week, at the moment, and this week will be no different. If you don't know what it is, just stay put, just stay tuned. You'll soon find out. It's a lot more exciting than I can ever make it sound in this sort of slightly laboured introduction. There are prizes. Well, there's one. You can win a Mystery Hour board game, as advertised by that lovely lady in Belfast just a moment ago. They sold out at Christmas, but you don't need to worry because you can get your very own copy, your very own box full of joy by being my favourite contributor of the week. Full terms and conditions for that are at lbc.co.uk. And you can find out more about the game itself at mysteryhour.co.uk. I think that's it, really. I mean, someone rings in with a question, someone else rings in with an answer. I told you I didn't make it sound very exciting, but it usually is. Shall we crack on? I think we should. Claudia is in Wokingham. Claudia, question or answer?
Question.
Carry on.
My question is about cravings and the grip of addiction.
Oh.
So let's just say that I'm a smoker or I'm an alcoholic and I get hit by a car and put in a coma for 12 weeks.
Smoker in a coma, I know. Yeah, I'm going with smoker, not drinker, because I think that it's an easier addiction to understand for some people.
Okay, so a smoker or a vapor.
Yes.
And I get hit by a car and I'm put in a coma for 12 weeks.
Yes.
When I wake up on that first day, am I craving as visceral as they would be on the first day of quitting?
What a magnificent question.
Slightly?
What an absolutely magnificent question. Do you have quite an active imagination, Claudia?
I do, actually.
Yeah, I thought
love
you might.
Thinking about all these scenarios. It's what I do all day.
That's a sensational question. I can't believe we've never done it before because, I mean, you think of the terrible stories of little babies that are born addicted to heroin, but that's because they've been absorbing their mother's drug taking. This is someone going cold turkey in a coma, effectively.
Yeah.
And do they wake up cured of their addiction, or do they wake up absolutely gasping for a smoke? We shall find out. Well, I hope we'll find out. I mean, Ray Liotta would go to someone who had a heavy smoker who had spent time in a coma. I don't know if we're going to get that, but we might get someone who's medically qualified to tell us what the situation would involve. Thank you, Claudia. Perfect opening. And that was quite a nice little musical nod, I thought, but maybe it wasn't. Phil's in Croydon. Phil, question or answer?
Hello, I have a question for you, James.
Carry on, Phil.
I've got a set of body weight scales.
Oh, body weight scale. Oh, you've got bathroom scales. You stand on them. Yes, okay.
Yes. And apart from obviously telling you the actual weight, these particular scales tell you about body water content, visceral fat, etc., etc. I mean, they also tell you BMI, which is a relatively simple calculation to make again.
Only if they know your height.
Yeah, which you program into an app that comes out into the phone.
Oh, cool! Wow.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they're not that exclusive, James. You don't need to worry about that.
You say that. It sounds pretty exciting to me. It sounds like the future, Phil.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, I just wondered, because you just stand on the scales as you normally would with a, box standard set, and I just wondered how do they actually tell you about things like the visceral fat?
Well, I mean, it'd be the same way they do BMI, wouldn't it? It'd just be an average. If you are of a certain height and you are a certain weight, then they're going to be able to take a fairly decent stab at. Oh, but then what if you were working out like nobody's business?
Exactly. It also measures muscle content as well.
So, what data do you put in on the app apart from height?
Put in height, age. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've used them now.
Well, it's kind of relevant, isn't it? I mean, because if you're putting in how often do you exercise, what's your sort of, do you smoke, do you drink, all of that kind of stuff that the doctor usually asks you?
No, you don't. You don't put that in.
So, what do the scales look like?
Same as any other set of scales.
Oh, well, Keith just said get him to describe the scales, as if that would be the answer to the question. So, describe the scales, Phil.
Okay,
Are they in the room with you now? Are they in the room with you now?
Yes, I have them right here.
Oh, go on then.
There's 4 little metal pads which found underneath the heel and sole of your feet.
Oh.
Apart from that...
Keith solved this one.
I knew he would.
No, you didn't. He's never done it before.
Well, he's the smartest person in the studio, let's face it.
Listen, Keith, I've told you to stop ringing into the programme and calling yourself Phil from Croydon. It's sending an electrical current around your body.
Oh, okay.
And fat, water and muscle will have different levels of resistance.
Oh, very good, Keith.
He's good. He's good, actually. Credit where it's due, mate. That is. I mean, if it turns out not to be true, then you're all going to spend the rest of the show in the corner. But are you happy with that answer, Phil?
Yeah.
There it is. Round of applause for...
Brilliant.
Round of applause for Keith, I suppose.
Yeah.
Well, that's the first. And we will not be making a habit of this, just in case anyone's wondering. Phil, mind how you go. 10 minutes after 12 is the time. That's never happened before. Crossing one off before we've... Well, unless I answer it, of course. Ian is in Middlewich in Cheshire. Ian, question or answer?
Hello, James. It's a question.
Hello, Ian.
Hi, good afternoon. My question is about tinned peas.
Oh, my favourite topic, my favourite category. Carry on.
They always come, or usually come, in a slightly smaller tin than everything else, and I don't know why.
This is true.
I've looked in the cupboard. I've got a couple of tins of mushy peas.
Bachelors or own brand?
Bachelors, they are bachelors.
Chip shop style or traditional?
Chip shop style.
Carry on.
And I've got a couple of tins of marrowfat peas, and they're both 300 grams.
As opposed to your 400 for your normal tin.
Yeah, and I don't know why it is. It's been puzzling me. There doesn't quite seem to be enough when we have our dinner for 2 of us.
No?
So I'm not sure...
It's a brilliant question. We're on a roll today. That's 3 superb questions so far today. I'm trying to think. What do you do with marrowfat peas, actually, before you go? What's the... Do you just...
Well, depends where you live. Slightly north of here, in the rugby league belt, it's pie and peas.
Right.
And I don't know. Maybe
so they taste like mushy, but they taste like mushy peas, but they haven't been mushed, really.
Yeah. They've been soaked and processed, but they've not been squashed up.
Oh, okay. I like and so I would have said that 300 grams is one portion, but it's not, is it? It's quite a big portion.
It's too much for one and not quite enough for 2.
It is a very odd figure to have chosen.
The other thing is it messes up your stackage system in your cupboard.
Yeah, well, unless you've got a separate section for peas, which it sounds like you have, actually. So you've managed to clear... You've cleared that hurdle. You've cleared that hurdle, Ian. There's a great chippy in Middlewich by the canal.
There is indeed, yeah. It's called the King's What chippy.
I didn't know that. Another Ian. There's 2 Ians in Middlewich. Do they?
It used to be owned by a woman called Etta Malt, so it's been called Etta's for years, but its proper name is the King's What chippy. So there you go.
And you'll get peas in there, no doubt.
Yeah, but only mushy ones, not marrowfat.
No, you never get marrowfat peas in a chippy, do you? I like that. A man after my own heart, culinarily speaking. But why? Yeah, I've obviously noticed it, but I've never asked the question before. Why is it only peas, effectively, that come in 300-gram cans? Ian, take care. 13 minutes after 12 is the time. You are listening to James O'Brien on LBC. And it's not a new thing. It's always been like that. The tins have always been smaller. Madeline is in Tunbridge Wells. Madeline, question or answer?
It's a question, please.
Carry on.
So, with Iran been in the news recently and the uranium that they had enriched to 60%...
The Iranian uranium?
You don't.
The Iranian uranium.
Say that one. So the IEAI, is it?
IEIOU.
That one as well.
Yes.
I'll only say one.
Okay.
So they're saying that they have enriched it to 60%. How does anyone know how much a country has enriched their uranium to? Do they have spies in there? Is it something that... How do they even know that sort of thing?
Well, I don't. I mean, it may be someone else can provide you with a better answer, but I've obviously been on a bit of a crash course on this stuff this week. The latest development, by the way, is the Ayatollah announcing that Iran have scored a massive victory against the United States of America. So I'll leave you to choose between the two Ayatollahs, really, about who is likely to be telling the truth. But I mean that the Iranian facilities are, as you've pointed out, subject to IAEA inspections. So they go in and check. So just clarifying what your question is, do you mean how do they know they're not hiding even more enriched stuff from them?
Well, I mean, I guess it is a two... Yeah, how do they... So if they physically have to check, what's to stop them hiding some?
Well, I think they'd know if they had the capability to check. And also, until Donald Trump pulled out of the last treaty and created precisely the scenario which he claimed then justified the bombings that we saw at the weekend, they would be sanctioned if they were found to be in breach of what had previously been agreed. It's only since he unilaterally withdrew America from the JCPOA, I think it is, just to mix up even more initialisms, that Iran's production of enriched uranium went off the charts. But how they know, it's two questions, isn't it? It's either what is the science? If I gave you a bit of uranium, how would you work out how enriched it was?
Yeah.
Or how do they know they're not lying or hiding it? But that would apply to all uranium everywhere.
I know.
Yeah.
Because I didn't. The person I spoke to before educated me. Actually, I thought they bought 60% more, but I didn't realise they were enriching it. And I was thinking, can they get it on the black market? But obviously they can't because they've got to enrich it themselves.
Yeah, but that's what I think the centrifuges do. Anyway, I'm veering out of my own patchy knowledge on this. So there's two. I think we'll have to do. How do they know it's 60% enriched? I mean, presumably you can't tell by look. Do you know what I'm thinking now, Madeline? Mm-hmm. I'm thinking someone's just tuned in and they don't know what Mystery Hour is, and they think we're having a current affairs. This is a current affairs phone-in, and I was about to say, can you tell?
Halfway through, I was thinking, oh God, I've gone way off. This
is our light relief for the week. But can you tell how enriched it is just by looking at it? I was about to say, and I thought, what if someone's just I've heard about this program. Apparently, it's really good on the Iran situation. Can you tell how enriched it is just by looking at it? We'll find out. We'll find out for you, Madeline. Well, for everyone now, Iranian uranium. How do you know how enriched it is? How indeed does the IAEA know how enriched it is? Or indeed the AEIOU? 12:17 is the time.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 19 minutes after 12. Craig, I think you got overtaken by predictive text, but I can tell what you were trying to write, so I won't steal it from you. But the Iranian uranium is taxing Madeline's cranium. Is it just me and Craig who like things like that, or does it tickle anyone else's fancy too? Jerry's in Melbourne. Not that one, the other one. Jerry, question or answer?
A question, please, James.
Carry on.
We've just been on a 4-day cruise on the Queen Mary 2 over to Rotterdam.
Oh, very nice.
It was as well. Rotterdam's beautiful. And we went over there, and on the Saturday afternoon, we had a letter through all the cabins that on Sunday night they were going to weigh the ship.
Oh, yes.
While it was in port. And they said not to move about too much between the hours of 2:30 and 4:30.
Right.
And that's honest. I'm not having you on. It's the truth.
Yeah.
And we had, like I say, it was an official letter. I just wondered how they weigh the ship.
I thought you were going to say why we weren't allowed to move around.
No.
What, you were in dock?
We couldn't move. We were in dock. Yeah, we docked in Rotterdam.
Yes. I think I know this, and the reason why I know this is because I live in Brentford.
Right.
So Brentford is the junction of the Grand Union Canal and the River Thames.
Yeah.
And back in the day, I'm just thinking ahead a few sentences to see if I'm about to make an oath of myself, Jerry. Please be gentle with me if I do. So back in the day, you would have to pay a toll or a tax when you were taking your cargo from the canal onto the Thames to pay for the canal. I presume it was like a toll, wasn't it? And
a coal tax it was.
Well, there you go. And we have in Brentford a gauging lock, which allows you to weigh a boat according to the displacement of the water in the lock.
Yeah, but there was no lock.
Are you sure?
I'm positive, yeah. Yeah, I was just amazed, and they said that they weigh the ship, like I say, not to move about.
Yeah, but this is Occam's razor, Jerry, isn't it? There must have been... I mean, how else are they going to measure it? They haven't got old Phil Croydon's scales.
That's why I'm ringing you up.
I know, but why are you rejecting the water displacement theory out of hand?
Because it was into an open estuary.
But did you stick your head out the porthole?
No, I looked over the side. It's a big ship.
No, I know. So how do you weigh a ship?
I don't know.
I know you don't, nor do I now. Well, I never did, but I didn't realise I didn't know.
Somebody will know, James. Somebody will know.
You're right, and your faith is touching. How do you weigh a ship? And do we know why? I mean, is it because if everybody moved around, then it would make the reading less accurate? Why did they tell you all to not move around? Not that you'd be doing
past 12.
What?
Yeah, they shut all the bars at 12:30. So that people couldn't move about.
Well, I suppose if you had like a couple of hundred people making their way from one end of the boat to the other, it's going to affect the displacement of the water, which is almost certainly the way in which they weigh the ship, although I'm yet to work out precisely how, Jerry.
Yeah, and so am I. But I did try not to turn in bed.
That was very community-minded of you. How do you weigh a ship? 0345 6060 973. I mean, listen, I can do some pretty rubbish jokes, Stephen, but honestly, one about fish using their scales, that's worthy of Keith. That's so awful. Riley's on Old Street. Riley, question or answer?
It's a question.
Carry
Another
on.
one about weight, actually.
Okay.
So, does the world get heavier? Or is it always been the same weight? Because I know all the materials that we build things, etc., are already on the Earth. But for example, sand turning into glass will weigh more. And a child being born, obviously, as they get older, they weigh more. So does it stay the same weight, or does it get heavier?
I think it stays the same, because everything is energy.
Okay.
So a child gets bigger by eating and by, growing, but the growing is fueled by things that also weigh stuff that no longer exist because they've just been eaten.
True, but then obviously, they obviously poo, and then the poo's on the Earth. Like, everything's still here.
Yeah, so then it wouldn't get heavier. You can't conjure matter out of nothing. You can just transfer energy, so it can move from chemical to kinetic, and then heat will go off. But that, if anything, you could probably make it easier to think that things might actually get lighter rather than heavy. But you're not going to accept this answer because I don't sound like I know what I'm talking about. Meteorites, maybe a meteorite.
Yeah.
A meteorite might make the world a bit heavier.
Okay. Yeah.
But then we launch rockets into space, so the numbers are going to be negligible.
Mm.
What? How we get does the world get heavier? Does the world get heavier? God, man,
Yeah.
this is... Yeah, okay. Were you up late last night? 25. You were so were. It's 25. No, man, does the world ever get heavier? 25, your hairs are light. And how do you weigh a ship? That's probably it for weight-based questions. Chris is in Swansea. Chris, question or answer?
Answer.
Carry on.
It's about Claudia and coming out of a coma if you have an addiction.
Yes.
Okay, so I was a 30-a-day smoker plus.
Right.
And then I had a cardiac arrest.
Oh, dear.
And I spent a number of weeks in a coma in hospital.
Wow.
And when I came out of my coma, my brother... I was intubated, by the way, and
yes.
I had to write on a blackboard everything I was thinking and wanted to say. And he asked me, do you fancy a cigarette? And I wrote, I don't smoke. And, of course, He said, in which case, can I have the cigarettes on your kitchen table?
I'm a bit cross with your brother. You've got a tube poking out of your mouth, and your brother's trying to...
No, it was in my trachea.
In your throat. I nearly said that.
Yeah.
And your brother's trying to spark up a smoke for you in the coma ward. That's outrageous behaviour. But when you wrote "I don't smoke," did you know that you had been a 30-plus, or were you still a bit delirious?
Oh, I knew I was a smoker. I was in full control of my faculties, except I couldn't talk or anything. And he just said, "Do you want a cigarette?" And I said, "I don't smoke." And from that day on, this was over 12 years ago. And from that day on, I've had no desire to smoke a cigarette.
Just wiped out the difficult bit. You were spark out for the difficult bit, for the cravings.
I've often thought to myself, shall I open up a clinic, a cessation clinic, and put people in comas for a couple of weeks?
Well, I had some messages, oddly, about people who had been put into induced comas in order to cure alcoholism or drug addiction. But A, I don't read out messages during Mystery Hour on air, and B, there's no way of... I hadn't double checked it, and now of course I don't need to, because you've nailed it. Well, I said you'd get one of these. I don't know how many people.
I'm going to get a Ray Liotta. Am I going to get a Ray Liotta?
I don't know. Let's see.
I'm Ray Liotta, and you're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. If you build it, they will come.
They will.
Thank you so much.
Well, look at that. Don't share it with your brother, eh? He sounds like a right rascal.
No way. In fact, he's my twin brother as well.
Is he really? Well, flipping it. Yeah. 12:27 is the time, and he still smokes, I bet. And you are listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Every now and then, I do feel the need to remind you that Ray is no longer with us, but the good spirits and fun that he demonstrated when he agreed to record that little message remain. Thank you, Chris. Dave's in Brentwood. Dave, question or answer?
Question, James.
Carry on.
I was told of this when you were talking about Greta Thunberg a couple of weeks back.
Yes.
Yeah, and it occurred to me, I've been learning German recently on good old Duolingo. And
how are you getting on?
It's, I've got to the end of it at the moment, and I don't know enough. It only goes up to level 80 for German, and I sort of feel that there's about 25% of the language still missing for me. So,
okay. Well, you need to go to Germany.
Languages, they go at much higher levels, but But no, anyway, the Germans got the same thing as the Swedes, and they got TH, and the T's always silent. So you got thema, as it's spelled, is team for a topic, and things like that. And so it got me wondering, if they don't pronounce a H and the T sounds exactly the same way as if in words where it's got a T on its own as when it's a TH, why don't they just drop the H?
Well, they'd have to rewrite all the dictionaries.
Well, they do that anyway.
Yeah, good point. Well, it would make all the old dictionaries obsolete.
The old ones are anyway, because they're replaced by the new ones.
No, they're not. No, they're not.
Would come out with a new one every year.
But that's just got extra words in it. It hasn't rewritten the old words.
Well, it takes into account changes.
It might take into account changes, but you can't just rewrite a word like that.
Well, of course you can.
No, you can't. It's never happened. When's it ever happened? Can't do it.
I'm sure it's been done in the past.
I'm sure it hasn't. I'm genuinely sure it has. I mean, well, all right, it may have done, but you're not. I mean, you can't do it with.
You go back to Chaucerian English. Words are spelt completely differently.
Yeah, but they didn't have any dictionaries.
No, I'm sure they did.
No, they didn't. Dr. Johnson did the first dictionary. That was years later. I think we've kind of answered it obliquely, unintentionally, because it would be too huge, and also things come back round again. So you said H, right?
Yeah.
It's not H. There's no H in H. There's only one H in H. So you said H. How's it spelled?
H.
How's it spelled?
It's spelled with an H.
It's not. It's spelled AITCH.
Okay, no nitpicking.
No, I'm not nitpicking. I'm demonstrating that that's why you couldn't change how it's spelled in the dictionary, because some people might continue to pronounce it with the silent letter.
Some might actually start it with a H as well.
Yeah, exactly. So you
don't. Two different spellings there straight away.
But they'd be wrong, because that's not the one in the dictionary. And despite the fact that that's the one that you deployed.
Have you just checked the dictionary on that?
No, of course I haven't.
I know it's true. It's one of my pet hates, but I was too polite to point it out at the time. So, I mean, all right, I'll leave it on the board. Why don't they remove the silent letters from words in the dictionary?
Yeah.
But I think the answer will be A, because it would take ages, and B, because language is fluid, and they might. I mean, no one's ever going to start saying knife, but people might start. They would once have been pronounced, many of these letters, and therefore they could once be pronounced again. But I like it. It's a good question. How many languages have you done on?
Only German.
It sounded like you'd done loads. All right.
No, I just look at it. When you look at the leaderboards, they have a number next to the name.
Yes.
And the number's the level they're up to.
That's it, and that's as high as it goes.
On English, they certainly go up to 100.
Okay.
See all the American flags there.
Yeah. No, well, I mean, there's another reason why. You've got American dictionaries and English dictionaries, so there's enough confusion there already. But anyway, it's on the board. It's on the board. Why don't they drop the silent letters from the dictionary, from words in the dictionary? 12:31. Nice one, Dave. Elizabeth Secker is here with your headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
34 is the time. Smoker in a coma. That's a great one. That's one of the all-time greats, I think. And it's gone double. We got the question and the answer on the board. I'm sorry for singing, but it was irresistible. Phil was brilliant as well on the scales. The tin peas question. Why do peas come in tins of 300 grams when pretty much everything else in the vegetable aisle is going to be 400 grams? Don't message me to tell me about other things that come in, because I want to know why. Particularly mushy peas, which are marrow-fat peas, but they are marrow-fat peas that have been mushed. I thought I'd made that point, but one pedant suggests that I didn't. So the 400-gram tin would give you 2 portions, I would say. It's the same as a tin of beans. You can eat a whole tin of beans, but a big tin, that's why they sell the little tins of beans, isn't it? Because a big tin of beans is quite a lot of beans. But you get 400 grams in a big tin of beans. You get 300 grams in a tin of peas. You get 200 grams, I think, in a small tin of beans. It's like half a tin. So what's this 300 grams all about? And why? Is it unique to peas? How do you know how enriched uranium is? We're thinking of Iranian uranium, but in your cranium, you may be thinking of uranium from anywhere else. How do you know how enriched it is? That may turn out to be a silly question, given that it's radioactive. You might just point a Geiger counter at it, but I don't know, and nor did Madeline, and that's why it's on the board. How do you weigh a ship? I'm going to be right about that. I know I am. There's no other way you can do it apart from water displacement, but Jerry in Melbourne was quite dismissive, I felt, of my suggestions, and so we will wait until someone better qualified than me confirms that I was right all along. And Riley wants to know how you weigh the world, and it's possible she was up quite late last night. Contemplating things. Or not even how you weigh the world, but whether the world ever gets any heavier. Well, Dave would like to know why we don't get rid of all the silent letters. Why do we keep the silent letters in words when they're pointless, aren't they? Knife. He's thinking more of German words, but when the new dictionary comes out, let's get rid of all the silent letters. Why don't they do that? I don't think we'll get an answer to that, actually. But I'll be delighted if we do. I wonder if Susie is listening. If you're listening, Susie, perhaps you could tell us why we don't get rid of all the silent letters in the new editions of the dictionaries. Glyn's in Eastbourne. Glyn, question or answer?
Answer, I think.
I think so too. Go on, Glyn.
But also, just to say, I'm completely with you about the H.
Yeah.
It makes me cringe every time I hear it.
Like fingernails on a blackboard.
Yeah,
I don't know why. It's quite snobbish, really. It's just a pronunciation glitch, but there we are. Anyway, carry on.
Right, okay, so water displacement. So they know the weight of a ship when it's built, and they know its displacement in the water. And so...
so they stick a line on the side of it?
I think you're nearly there. There is a line on the side of it. It's called a plimsoll line.
There we go.
And the... depth above or below the water line that line is tells them how much water is displaced. So when it's full of people, obviously it's going to sit lower in the water.
Laded, Glyn.
Laded.
Isn't it? Isn't that the word?
Laded, yeah.
Comes up in crosswords quite a lot for some reason. So it's a verb for loading a ship. It's laded.
Right.
Anyway.
So they know the weight of water. They can calculate how much extra water has been displaced, and that tells them how heavy the ship is.
That's it. So I was right. You don't need a gauging lock for it because the gauging lock is necessary because all the canal boats don't have a line on the side. But
yeah, I would assume so.
Yeah, but the simple answer is they know what the ship weighed when it left the shipyard, and therefore by looking at where it sits in the water according to the line, they can work out how much weight is on it. And if you were all running up and down the ship, it would wobble too much and you wouldn't be able to get a proper reading.
Yep.
Qualifications?
I used to be in the Royal Navy.
I know. That'll do.
Marines.
There you go. Round of applause for Glenn, please. Thank you, Glenn, but also thank you, Jerry. I think you'll find I was right. Ha, 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 ha. Daniel's in Southampton. Daniel, question or answer?
James, hi. It's a question.
Carry on.
Travelators and escalators. You've probably been on many in your life.
This is more than certainly true.
Maybe this only applies to me, I don't know. But when I'm on a travelator escalator that's working properly, I can get on, get off, everything's tickety-boo. But if I'm on one that is broken and I step off at the end, I get a jolt like
no, everyone does. Yeah, well, I think we've done this before, which is fine. It's
if you did, I have another question for you.
No, I like this one. I can't remember the answer. I think your brain is simply... Your eyes are telling your brain that you're on an escalator, and so your brain is...
I've tried to overcome it. You look away...
Through the power of mind control?
Exactly. You distract yourself, but it still happens. Yeah.
I don't think there's going to be another answer to it, except that you've done it a million times and had one outcome, so you expect it on the 1,000,001 time to have the same outcome, but you don't. So your body kind of... It jars, doesn't it? Physically as well as mentally. It kind of. Well, I'll try and find out for you. So when you're walking up a broken escalator, why does it feel weird? That's the question, right?
Well, not necessarily when you're walking up and when you step off it.
Yeah. At the end of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're preparing yourself, aren't you, for that? There's always a little bit of jeopardy involved when you're stepping off an escalator. It's greatest when you're a child. It's much greater. But even when you're a little bit older, you've still got that slight fear of getting it wrong. So you're preparing yourself for that, and then it's not there, which is the moment of jar.
Right. I must make a habit of watching others to see how they behave.
Yeah, no, well, do. I mean, don't be weird about it, but you'll probably find that everybody else is at least feeling similar. But we'll get the... it's like jumping off a moving vehicle. Is it? I just read out something that Mike sent in. I don't think I should have read that. It's nothing like jumping off a moving... Or is it? No. Let's get an answer for Daniel. What happens when you're getting off a broken escalator? Why does it feel weird at the end? 0345 6060 973. Neil's in Dublin. Neil, question or answer?
It's an answer, please.
Carry on.
It's uranium.
Ah, yes. Iranian uranium.
Well, uranium from uranium.
Yes.
So basically there's 3 different isotopes of uranium. The 235 isotope is the one you need for fissile or nuclear reactors or weapons.
Right.
And they use centrifuges to separate out the uranium based on mass to collect the 235. So based on how many cycles of centrifuge and how much uranium they started with, and the way the IAEA work, they use self-report, and then they come and inspect, and then they'll measure the weight of your uranium and then the radioactivity of it, and then they'll basically rely on that data to figure out how far along your enrichment is.
So I'm going to sound stupid however we play this. You're literally a scientist working in this field, I can tell. It depends. It depends how powerful your centrifuge is. You can only... Is it?
Yeah.
Right.
So there's very little difference between U-234 and U-235 by weight.
Yeah.
So you have to do an awful lot of cycles to separate it out. Now, I'm not a radiological person. I'm biological, but I use uranium every day, and I would be audited yearly by the IAEA.
Okay.
To keep on top of my stocks.
Wow.
So I would have to rationalise if there's a difference in how much I had and how much I reported I had. So
and how easy would it be for you to fool them?
Difficult. Very difficult. You can't just...
You couldn't hide a centrifuge. So the size of a centrifuge that you'd need in order to enrich it to weapons grade, to U-235, would be impossible to hide, to conceal.
No, not impossible.
Okay.
But when you import uranium, you have to reconcile everything, so it can't just disappear. So you would have import licenses for buying uranium.
Got it.
And then that would be...
Which is why the films always have uranium, that dodgy uranium on the black market. Even Back to the Future has got that, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And they're Iranian. That's Iranian uranium in Back to the Future. We've gone full circle.
I think it was
Iranian.
Plutonium.
Oh, maybe it was
plutonium.
Plutonium. I think you might be right. Actually, it might have been Plutonium. Qualifications?
I'm an electron microscopist, and I use urolactate to stain samples for TEM.
Fantastic. Round of applause, I think, for Neil. Lovely work. It's coming up to 1:45. What still needs answers? The escalators, the silent letters, the weighing the world, or the weight of the world. I've got it on my shoulders most days, actually. And the P's. I think we've done the uranium now, so we put Neil's name down there. I like this. I mean, I don't generally read out messages, but only if you're attempting to answer the question. I was in a coma for a week, James, after a car crash. When I woke up, I forgot that I was a smoker until the trolley, you're showing your age here, until the trolley which sold newspapers, sweets and cigarettes came round the ward. So you haven't told us whether or not you started again. Chris didn't, thankfully. It's coming up to 1:45. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 12:47, and you are listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Another cracking mystery. It's not over yet. Still time, maybe time for another question, but certainly time to get some answers on the board. Escalators, silent letters, the weight of the world, and tinned peas. Something for everybody, I think. And in order to tell the weight of the world question, Eleanor has got that look on her face. You need to use her words, supremely qualified. The most qualified. The most qualified. You need to absolutely know your onions and your world weighing matters, okay? 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. Does the world get heavier? Does the world get heavier? And there must be an answer to that, but obviously we are dealing with a few people ringing the studio who, how can I put this politely, don't really know what they're talking about. Now, that's true most days. Let us not lie. There are people presenting the programme who generally doesn't know what he's talking about. But on this one, Mystery Hour, the standards are much higher for Mystery Hour than they are for the rest of the week, which is why I say at the end of our conversation, qualifications? And you say something like that thing what Neil in Dublin just said that I didn't really understand, but sounded very, very impressive and explains why he was able to tell us about the Iranian uranium. It was, in fact, Libyan plutonium in Back to the Future, so it was neither Iranian nor uranium. It was Libyan plutonium, not Iranian uranium. I've got geraniums now running around my head, or should I say cranium. Mo's in Cambridge. Mo, question or answer?
Question, please.
Carry on.
Why is it when you open a jar of coffee granules, good quality, as you get towards the bottom, it seems to get stronger? You can't use that heat teaspoonful anymore. You have to use considerably less.
Oh, I didn't know that. I don't really use coffee granules. I'm far too smart.
And it's been nagging at me for ages.
Well, I think it's obvious.
Is it? Oh, yeah. God. Tell me why.
Well, it is evaporation.
All right.
There'll be some water content in the granules. And once the seal is broken, it will leave some of it, leaving behind a stronger concentration of coffee.
Oh, right. I never thought of that. Okay.
Do you think that works? I think that works.
Well, I thought it might be maturing like a fine wine or cheese.
Or a lovely cheese. I think that's less likely.
but as the air sort of, that would be from every spoonful then, because as the air sort of gets to the top, it would be every spoonful, but that wouldn't work to the bottom, would it?
It would do, yeah, it would. I reckon it would, because you're going down to the bottom, so the top is moving all the time, isn't it?
Oh, okay.
God, this is quite a good answer, this. I hope it's true. But I mean, there's a reason why you've got, because it is one of the nicest things in the world, isn't it? Breaking that seal on the top of a coffee jar. I haven't done it for years because we've got one of those fancy machines now. But that must be there for a reason. And the reason will be to keep the moisture, because if it wasn't there, if it just had a lid screwed on, then it would be able to get out. It wouldn't be hermetically sealed. And so by the time you bought it, if it had been on the shelf or in transit for a month or 3, it would have actually gone down visibly, probably, because each granule has shrunk a bit.
Oh, right, okay.
Or it could be oil. It could be the oil in the coffee, so it's stronger at the bottom than it is at the top, because the oil has sunk down.
Oh, right, okay.
I mean, you're very kind and nice because you're making noises as if I know what I'm talking about. I don't, but both of these are plausible, so I better find out why. So what we've never done, Mo, is open it and leave it.
Well, open?
Or just with the screwed top on. We've never done that because we're always using it. We've never conducted an experiment. We don't have a control whereby we can see whether simply by dint of being open it's going to get stronger. Because if it's the oil theory, sinks to the bottom, or smaller granules making their way to the bottom, the reason why it's stronger as you get towards the end of the jar has nothing to do with moisture. Or it could be all of these theories. It could be smaller granules, it could be oils, and it could be water.
How complicated, yeah.
But what are you telling me? Are you telling me that it gets stronger? Because you can't, because we haven't done the experiment, but it gets stronger as you go down the jar.
Yes. As you get towards the bottom, you cannot use the heat teaspoon.
Or does it get stronger the longer it's open? We don't know, do we?
Oh, yes, but you only open it for a fraction of a second, don't you? So.
Yeah, but it's not airtight, which is why it's got the seal on it.
Oh, it's not vacuum sealed, yeah.
Correct. Okay. That's why you've broken the vacuum seal. So anyway, I mean, that question is fairly straightforward. I'm apologising now for complicating it so much, but why does the coffee get stronger as you make your way down a jar of granules? 0345, correct answers only, 60600973. Thank you, Mo, take care. Sebastian is in Ronneby in Sweden, appropriately enough. Sebastian, question or answer?
It was an answer.
Carry on.
But I had many questions as well.
Yeah, you and me both, mate, but just concentrate on the one you've rung in for.
Yeah. I was sure that I would call you yesterday discussing Trump, but I'm so happy to, discuss something lighter.
Well, we're delighted to have you here. Anyway.
Yes. So, actually, the answer to the question whether you can or cannot hear the H, her name is Greta Thunberg,
yes.
And if you listen closely, it isn't silent, actually. And it has to do with the fact that certain sounds are produced in a certain place in your mouth, and the sound that follows must, your tongue and the size of your mouth has to adjust. So when you travel, so to speak, from one sound to the other, there will be sounds produced in between. Sometimes you have... Yes, you have diphthongs and so forth when you produce vowel sounds that you hear in certain dialects, but it is natural because you have you always do what is most convenient, what is easiest. So this is if you listen to Thunberg, you can hear the H, but there's also another aspect. It is that we are taught in school that reading and writing is so important. But first of all, we speak a language. So the writing is often lagging. So we have, if we read Swedish from 100 years ago, for instance, you will find a lot of H's where you can't really hear them because they pronounced things differently back then. But some of them still linger. And TH, as in the English language, used to exist because English is one part Anglo-Saxon, one part French, and one part Norse.
Yes.
So you would find that some of these words, many of the words, are actually derived from the th sound where you do this listing.
This is the fluidity of language. And so, I mean, do you want the good news or the bad news?
The bad news would be what?
You haven't actually answered the question that Dave asked.
Yeah, he asked why it is silent.
No, he didn't. He asked why the dictionaries don't remove the silent letters.
Oh, it's lagging. I mean, it's like you say, dictionaries take more time to alter, of course.
And it can swing. And also there's a history lesson, as you've just demonstrated, Sebastian. There's a history lesson in the spelling of a word. It helps you understand where it came from and what its etymology is. And if you start removing all the silent letters, then you lose the lessons of history.
Yeah, well, of course, you would like to modernize the language when the spelling is so.
Well, yeah, some of the really weird ones. Can you? All right, and the good news, which you didn't ask for, is that I like your answer anyway, so you're going to get a round of applause. But could you say Greta's full name for me again? Would you mind?
Greta Thunberg.
Greta Thunberg.
Yeah.
You sound
You're
a bit
doing good job.
Greta Thunberg, and that's so
we have a.
I've got to crack on. I could listen to you all day, but I can't. Sheila will be here in a minute.
Of course.
Round of applause for Sebastian.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
12:56. Graham's in Clacton-on-Sea. Graham, question or answer?
Answer, James.
Carry on, Graham.
It's to do with the coffee.
Yes.
I think it's something to do with something. I think it's called the Doppler effect, where you get small pieces going to the bottom of a container, and the large pieces work their way to the top.
I think I think that's called the Twiglet effect.
Oh right, okay.
That's all right. No, carry on. Yeah.
So when you dig your spoon into the coffee granules, little tiny bits flake off as you pull your spoon out, and they fall to the bottom, and your final spoonful is going to be stronger because there's little tiny granules, less airspace, and one or two larger bits.
Yeah, of course it is. So the granules are the same concentration, whatever size they are, but you'll get more of them on a spoon if they're small.
Yeah.
What
That's it.
Are your qualifications?
I drink coffee.
Is that it?
No, I used to be a teacher who...
So you're doing this from academic credentials?
Yeah.
There's nothing at all in the idea of evaporation or oils?
No.
You don't have to laugh, do you? Doppler is sound, I think, not. But it might be the same principle. Twiglets is a thing I made up in case anyone.
I like the Twiglets.
I like it as well, but I don't want another teacher like you to start using it in class tomorrow and getting.
No, I'm not a teacher now.
No, I know you're not, but someone might be who's listening, and they'll go in and they'll do this, and they'll say it's called the Twiglet effect, and we might. It's a bit like the Earl of Dartmouth inventing darts. That's now become widely accepted in some academic circles, despite the fact that I made it up on Mystery Hour years ago. Graham, you got yourself a round of applause.
Oh, lovely.
There we go. No, thank you very much. That is it, I think, for today. Have we got? I've got to pick a favourite. I've got to give it to Coma Chris, haven't I? Coma Chris, it would take his mind off. Well, he doesn't actually crave cigarettes anymore, is it? Or Madeline? Madeline was nice. We like Madeline's question about Iranian uranium. I'm going to give it to Chris. I think the question about the answer about comas. Can we give it to him, please? That's it for today. If you missed any of today's show, you can listen back on Catch Up on Global Player and the LBC app, where you can stay up to date on all the top stories. Put your news categories in the order you want. And pause and rewind live radio. Listen to a range of podcasts. And in fact, the last hour, you might want to rewind and check that you did actually hear what you thought you heard. Download the official LBC app for free from your app store now. Tom Swarbrick will be with you at 4 on LBC, but now it's time for Sheila Fogarty.
James O'Brien on LBC.